Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to another Thursday night here at the Sports Crib. Today is the opening day of baseball season. We have the last week of the NBA. A couple of important games on. Boston is playing Milwaukee. Last game's be Sunday. I think Boston's hit about 15 threes in this game, but really good game. If you have a chance, jump and watch it. Boston at Milwaukee. But as I said, it's the beginning of baseball season, and I see Mr. Bill Carroll here, along with Mr. Burgess. How are you guys doing this evening?
Well, hello
Good
there.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. How is everybody?
yeah, yeah. Nashville will do that to you.
All right, so the travel in general, no matter where you are, at some point, you're just hoping your friends remember who you are.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I'm blessed, and working is blessed, and we have jobs, and yeah, I can't complain. I could, but it doesn't make any sense because I get to chat for the next 3+ hours. No, I get to chat with my guys about sports because it's Thursday night. That's what we do.
Yes, and it's a 2-hour show, Demetrius. It's a 2-hour show.
2-hour show. We're gonna. One day we might do 2 hours. I can't wait. When we do 2 hours, we're gonna look around and we're gonna be pissed. And then we're just gonna make up stuff to talk about after that, because it's gonna feel wrong. It's gonna feel wrong. But I mean, we can try it if you want.
Look, I think Bill and I have talked more than 2 hours.
We have.
But it was just the two of you, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, of course.
So, yeah, good luck with that one. But anyway, hey, sport very close to your heart, Demetrius. It's the beginning of baseball season.
Sir.
Why don't you give us a little synopsis of your opening day there? I know you were probably working, but
well, for me, opening day isn't really until tomorrow because it's all about the Detroit Tigers. So, but baseball is that thing, and I could do a whole deal. I'm not going to do it. I think I've already done it before. It's about spring, and it's a different game, right? And I try and tell these people who want baseball to be more like basketball and other faster sports. That's not what baseball is or will ever be. And if you keep wanting it to be that way, you're just not a baseball fan, and that's okay. But it is a game that's just different. And like this offseason was weird. You had a flurry of activity in late November with all these great signings, and then they locked them out, and you knew what that was going to be. Deadlines make deals, and we knew when it got to a point where they might have to cancel some games, i.e., give away some money, that something would get done. And exactly the time frame that became realistic, that money would be taken out of the pockets of very, very rich white men, then a deal got done. And so I was never really worried. And so now we're here, and I love opening day. Opening day in Detroit is a big deal. Tigers had a really good offseason, both organically with kids growing up. They got 3 young arms, 2 young position players, and then they gave us a signal that the rebuild is in a different phase. It's time to try and win. Signing Javi Baez, 6 years, 140 million. That's not we're rebuilding. That's what we're trying to win right now. Signing Eduardo Rodriguez from Boston, the trade for Tucker Barnhart, a really good defensive catcher. And I want you guys to get used to a term. I'm going to use it. It's an inside baseball term called framing. It's the job of the catcher.
Framing pitches,
Framing pitches. Tucker Barnhart is one of the best in baseball at framing, right? That is a great value he brings. Well, you got a young staff. So I went a little bit deep there, but I'm obviously excited. They made a trade the other day and quietly got a kid from Tampa named Austin Meadows, who's only 26. And I like where we are. He's going to hit the ball well in Comerica Park. So, yeah, I'm jacked. I'm jacked. My basketball team isn't ready yet, but I think my baseball team might be ahead of everybody because I think they're going to be a good team this year. And it's organically built and it's sustainable because they got 3 really good arms in their rotation. They got 2 really good position players. Kid we stole from Minnesota last year named Akil Badu. If you don't know who Akil Badu is, you should probably get to know his name. So I like where we are, and I just like the beginning of baseball. It's sign of spring, and for people who don't live in Southern California, that matters. So it's a good time of year, right?
Yeah, we have a little heat spell here. It's going to be knocked down after the weekend, but right now it's about 80
I don't even want to hear.
degrees.
I don't want to hear it. Don't even want to hear it,
well, well, at least it's not raining in Nashville, is it? No.
Right. No. It rained in the entire Midwest for the better part of 2 days, but it's good now. So
Yeah, well,
and I'm going home tomorrow, so it's all good.
I think all of us remember Naptown from everybody anyone that was in Fort Campbell knows that little route there, Naptown, Hoptown, then Clarksville.
Beautiful
of course.
Clarksville.
Yeah. Austin P. University.
Paducah's not too far away also.
Yeah.
Right. Paducah's right across the border. Yeah.
So, Bill, what's your take opening day here?
Well, for the real baseball fans of Chicago, and by that I mean White Sox fans, there's also a certain amount of excitement. And obviously we're a little further down the road than my friend Demetrius's team, but also a team that's largely organically built. People were killing Kenny Williams not that long ago about the composition of this team, and calling for him to be defenestrated or rode out of town on a rail, tarred and feathered, set ablaze, whatever. And he said, I got a plan. Like, what is it? What's the Ozzie Newsome line? What about I got this? Don't you understand?
Right.
And he clearly got this. Like, he understood what they had. And yes, the Chris Sale, losing Chris Sale hurts, but keeping Chris Sale we're not a small market team. I mean, I'm not pretending we're a small market team, but we're also not the Dodgers. We're kind of between. We're not a small market team. We're not the Twins. We're not the Rays, but we're not the Dodgers. And we're never going to be the Dodgers. We're never going to spend money like that. Ever. Oh, and let me co-sign real quick. This is not related, but on Akil Baddoo. Kid looks like a NFL strong safety. And
Exactly.
is legit. He is, man. He looks like. The last time I saw a baseball player that looked like that was probably Brian Jordan, who was an NFL strong safety.
Very good comp. Very good comp.
Yep. And that's who he could be one day. Yep. I think he's going to hit in the 280s consistently, 290s, maybe even consistently. I think he's going to be at 28 to 35, maybe even more. But I don't think I think if he starts trying to be a home run guy, it'll hurt him. So I hope he just lets his natural power, which he's got plenty of, do its thing and not try to, mash the ball when you don't have to.
I'm fine with 25. Yeah.
Oh, I think he'll top 25 regularly, but I could see him getting even into the 30s on occasion. The problem is becoming a 40 home run hitter often, unless you're just ludicrously powerful, or which he is kind of. But I mean, unless you're those guys who has that natural swing that takes the ball out that often. Guys, I've seen guys ruin themselves, or at least make themselves less. They became less of a good all-around hitter. I think he just stays a line drive hitter with power. He'll naturally hit 32, 33 sometimes. It's when you start trying to hit 40 home runs that you measure stuff up. But yeah, I'm just co-signing because I like that kid a lot. And, I always sort of lust after that because I don't – whatever. Okay, so back to so the White Sox are a team that is poised, I think, to make a run. Now, a run still doesn't mean winning it all, probably, but I mean a run means deep in the playoffs, scares the heck out of somebody else, before one of those teams that's spending, ridiculous amounts of money finally just chokes them to death with cash. But I mean, that's the one thing baseball has a little bit of a problem with is just the difference between the haves and the have-nots is.
Those top-end teams.
The difference between the top and the bottom in baseball is probably the biggest difference in all of the major sports. Yeah. Because basketball, you're always just one draft away in basketball, right? And we've seen it happen.
Yep.
Oh, turns out this kid's LeBron James. Oh, it turns out this kid's Kobe. Oh, it turns out this kid's, Chris is Durant or whatever. I mean, like when you hit on a generational talent in basketball, because you only have 5 players on the field at one time and everybody touches the ball, and if the person's great on offense and defense, now your team goes from being horrible to pretty good, and you get one more good player, now you're a contender. So many things have to go right in baseball, and because the premium positions get paid so much in baseball. And football's sort of catching up, but not quite there. Not quite there, but they're catching up at the premium positions, right? The middle class of football is still probably a little bit underpaid, but the top people in football, they're doing okay. They're doing okay. They're all right. If you're an elite level quarterback, you're doing okay. If you're an elite level, right, pass rusher, you're doing fine. Even the elite level left tackles, you're doing okay. That's multiple generations.
Let me interject here before Bill takes us to lacrosse also.
They don't have a salary cap in lacrosse. They have a salary cap in lacrosse though. So,
but as usual, any sports season gives me a chance to throw venom at the mistake on the lake. So
don't pass that up.
Wow.
So
I get to mention my deep, abiding and bred in the bone hate of the Patriot while we're at it.
But when you talk about hypocrisy, we get rid of Chief Wahoo, but we're still called the Cleveland Indians.
Oh yeah.
And don't worry, and I'm going to throw the Braves in there too. Don't worry, they haven't missed the bus. Right. So, when you guys start talking about, all this ridiculous BS about, appeasing minorities or how you want to change things.
Be more culturally sensitive.
I know that there have been Indians in Cleveland at least for 55 years, at least. That's when I started going to it. So
longer than that.
Atlanta. I think Atlanta moved the Braves. They were somewhere else.
From Boston to Milwaukee,
right.
And from Milwaukee.
So we have a trail of tears in both cities. But anyway, it is the beginning of baseball season, and I'm looking forward. Of course. I want to know who's going to beat those Dodgers in the West. You guys let me know about. I mean,
when I figure that out, I'll let you know.
And this goes back to the point I was making. When a team says, "What was it? Was it the little meme or whatever, or just thing that young people like to say? Luxury tax, go brrr, or whatever. You like the money counting sound or whatever.
Yep. The money machine counting all those dollars.
They don't care. They don't care. If they said we're going to fine you half $1,000,000 for every $500,000 you're over the luxury tax, they'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a math problem we can have.
Okay. I mean, if it was literally a 1-to-1 ratio of penalty, they'd be like, all right, where do we, do you want it in straight cash, homie? Randy Moss.
You want it in nickels? You want it in nickels? Well, we'll give it to you. It's in the trophy room because we got to expand the trophy room, and we'll just give you what's left of the trophy room budget.
I mean, it does get a little ridiculous out there, but you mentioned some of the ways that we baseball purists versus those that want to speed up the game.
Right.
I've seen a lot of things that have kind of baffled me. I mean, there's you talked about framing pitches, but now they're talking about balls and strikes called by robots in the minor league, or some kind of experimentation with that. We've already seen in extra innings we put base runners on the bases, which I kind of thought was ridiculous. But once again, I'm that guy when Hey, there's a cork in Sammy's bet. Oh well, I mean, but
I mean, why
you know,
stop at
you
that?
know, I
Why
mean,
not an over? Why not if you get into extra innings, like start guys in a rundown? If they get out, you get a run. I mean, what are we doing?
Uh,
I
some of
mean,
those things are often just, they leak them out as trial balloons to see how absurd we think they are. And they go, oh, no, we were never really going to. It's just something we were saying. We got to make the bases bigger. Why you make the bases bigger? So you want more stolen bases? That's what. Okay. All right. My thing is always, I'm old man in his socks on the porch. If you don't like baseball, I'm fine with that. I'm not mad at you. Stop trying to make baseball basketball. Try. There's no clock. You can't do some of these time-related issues on a game that has no clock. It's just from a standard logic and reasoning standpoint, that's not it. I don't think the game needs to be fixed. I think there are people who are impatient and people who want instant gratification, and they just don't like baseball that much. And I'm okay with that. The game should not change the fundamental structure of the game to try and get those people. I say put the game on streaming services. Yeah, that kind of stuff works. Don't change the fundamental construct of the game. If they don't like it, they don't like it. We deal with that and work in the inner cities to make the game more popular. Do more stuff in the communities. There's other ways. Don't like making the bases bigger was the one that I thought. Okay, I guess that's gonna. Why don't just color them pink? I mean, why not?
see,
Make the base paths wider. I mean, what else could you
Put
do?
glowing lines like a first down marker in football. If that's the
Right.
kind of crap
no,
they
I mean,
want, I mean,
see, unlike you guys, I'm not a baseball purist, but if there's a Subway series, I want to watch the baseball game. I don't want to watch. I mean, uh, there's no cheerleaders in the outfield. There's no halftime.
right,
You know, I want to watch the game. If the
yeah,
Dodgers and the Giants are playing, I want to watch the game. If the
right,
Dodgers and the Padres are playing, I want to watch the game.
yeah.
Yeah,
The game doesn't need to change. I think the thing that they don't get, and I say they in a very nebulous fashion because I don't really know who it is. Their issue
Those
is not
people.
stuff
It's
like
those
those people.
people, Demetrius.
Right. It's not about base sizes. It's not about pitch clocks and any of that BS. You know what to do? Create a salary floor and a real salary cap to make the game more competitive. So a guy living in Kansas City doesn't have to wake up in April and know his team has no chance to win. Right. So a guy in Detroit, Michigan doesn't have to gut out 5 years of that to get to where I am now. Right. If there were more than 7 teams, Bill could tell you the 7 teams this year and say, these 7 teams are the field. I'm taking one of Bill's 7 teams. I'm taking that group. It might not even be 7. It might be 5. 5
yeah.
teams
I'm
or
say,
the other
I can,
25. I'm taking
even
those
even
fights.
even I can name 5. I mean,
Right.
so
Right.
it's,
Make the game more competitive. Make it so that more teams, more fans of more teams believe their team has a chance, at least until July, right? Right? Nobody should be out of it in June. And there are teams that are out of it in May, right?
Yeah.
And that's your real issue. If you want to ask me what's one thing, competitive balance. That tax is BS. That's not going to fix it because Bill just told you. The Dodgers will be like, who do I make the check out to?
Yep.
That's what the Dodgers are going to say. Who do we make this check out to? And hurry up because I got other players I got to go buy.
Yep.
You got to find a way to make the game more competitive. If half your league had a legitimate chance to win, then you don't worry about losing market share or people watching your game because it's just a math problem, right? If people in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, not just the small core group, multiply it by 5. Why? Because the Pirates are in it. They'll watch the games. People in Detroit watch the games now. And when we're good in the next 2 or 3 years, you're really going to see it. And you'll make your money back in playoff games, but make it competitive. And it is equally as much a salary floor where you've got to make teams like Kansas City and Pittsburgh and some of these small, they got to spend the money. That's the get into the game. That's the whatever they call it in poker. There's a name for it.
Right.
You got to have X amount of money to get in.
Right. You got to buy in.
Buy-in. That's the buy-in. You own a pro team, you got to spend $180 million, period. Minimum 180. And if you don't, we're going to tax you. You don't get revenue sharing from the TV deal. Incentivize that shit, right? So I could go off on baseball. A salary floor is equally as important as a salary cap. Because one day you're going to need to control the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Angels and the those 6-7 teams that we know. Because everybody can't do what Tampa Bay does. I don't even know how they do it. But
I mean, straight magicians,
people are trying,
like wizards, like Harry Potter stuff. So it's funny because the number you came up was 7, and it's weird or crazy, or maybe you just really know the numbers. So it's the Tampa Bay Rays and then the 6 highest spending teams in baseball.
Exactly. That's what it is. It's Tampa Bay and those other 6 dudes. That's it.
That's why I said I could name 5 myself. So
exactly.
So that's
But
that's
I mean, literally, it's Tampa Bay, Boston, maybe even the Padres because they went a little crazy. But we'll see what happens with the Phillies. But
the Padres have no chance. I mean, come on, the Dodgers are out here, the Giants are out here.
The Padres can't do that consistently, though. They can do it for a little while.
Right.
They can open a window and try a couple things. They can't do it consistently. Boston, Yankees, Dodgers, they can do it all day, every day, and it doesn't even bother them.
The Mets decided to get a little jiggy. We'll see what happens with that. I don't know.
The Mets got real jiggy.
Yeah, well, the Mets had the money to spend, but when you talk about the Padres, in probably 3 years, Tatis will either be with the Dodgers, the Yankees, or so
Boston, that's it. Yep.
But guys, I really got way off base here because there was a couple.
No, you didn't. You just talked baseball. You wasn't off base at all. That was beautiful. We gave 20 minutes. We gave 20 minutes to the game of baseball. Nice work. Nice job.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Guess what else happened this week?
Oh yeah.
Tiger Woods came back.
Remember way back when I told you guys that Tiger wasn't done years ago. You kept saying, "Is Tiger done?" And I told you he wasn't.
And hold on now, he limped around the court. Well, basically, if you watched it, he basically limped around the course to a 1 under par.
Right.
He shot a 71 on one leg. 71 on one leg at the Masters.
At the Masters, the course that was Tiger proofed. So who wants to start here? With the guy that not only limped around, not only is he walking around on one leg, but that leg was supposed to be gone, or he wasn't supposed to be here. 80 miles an hour without a skid mark.
Yeah.
Except for maybe the one. Well, no, it's not Cribbing After Dark yet. But anyway, go ahead.
Nope. I'll be quick. This was easy to see because when they were talking to him, he was real consistent. He thought he was being clever, but he didn't okie doke me. You know what he kept saying? He kept saying, "Ain't nothing wrong with my game. I got no problem shot making. I got no problem striking the ball. There's nothing wrong with my game, guys. It's just about walking." He told us. He basically was saying, "I'm good. I'll see y'all. I'm good." Because he can limp through this. He limped around today and shot a 71. He shot a 71. What? He has one leg and he shot a 71. It is. I mean,
after not playing for what? Not just the accident, but he didn't play for what, a year before the accident.
That's and he just
except with his son. I mean, and you come back. He didn't even do a warm up. His warm up is the Masters.
That's how you warm up.
He played 9 holes Monday, I think, and then just went out and shot a 71. And it's not like the course is easy because I think the leader is -5. He's 3 or 4. He's 4 shots off the lead on one leg.
3 or
I love
4,
it.
Yeah.
I think the leader's -5. So he's 4 shots off the lead on one leg. What are we talking about? And I'm not surprised, though. He told us when he said it's just about walking. Because this is a dude, we know Eldrick. If he's not going to embarrass himself, right? So when he even was talking about playing at the Masters, I said, he's ready? Of course, because he's not going to go out there and embarrass himself. If he's not just ready to make a good showing or maybe not make the cut, Eldrick don't show up for that. Eldrick says, hey, I'm not there yet. I'm cool with that. If he's going to go out there and try, he's got a shot to win because that's the only way his mind works. It's the only way his mind works. It might be petty, and it might go to Bill's greatness of pettiness or pettiness and greatness. I love that. I love that saying because you got to say both of them, right? Because you don't know which one is right, right? Tiger Woods was not going to show up if he didn't think he could win. And if he thought he could win, he's got a shot to win. Now, I'm not saying he will, but there are people who are asking the question like this: can he make the cut? I said, of course he's going to make the cut. If he didn't think he could make the cut, he wouldn't show up. And will he play better tomorrow? I don't know. He's probably going to be more tired tomorrow because he walked 18 today, and that's a long course. And I think it's going to be a little hotter tomorrow, but that's okay. This isn't even about winning it. If he's on the screen on Sunday, that's a win. Like for us, for him, he's going to take it, use it as fuel, and then next year, watch out. But I think this was that blessing in disguise thing. This was God tapped him on the shoulder and said, get your act together and you could still play golf. And it's remarkable, and it'll be appreciated more later. I don't think there's any doubt the way he talked and the way he struck the ball today.
And
shot up 71.
Bill, not only that, but we talk about Tom Brady, but how's Tiger? 40 what?
I mean, he's 40. Hold on, I'll tell you a second. 42, right?
Yeah. Is he 42 or 44?
He might. Hold on, let me think. I can tell you, he was 19 in 1990. Wait, yeah, he turned pro when he was 19, right? He turned 20 during his first year on the court on the tour, and that was 95. Is that right?
Oh, we're wrong. No, Eldrick is 46.
46,
yeah,
right?
That's
what I was doing. I was doing
the math. About 44.
Yeah, Eldrick is 46. Yeah,
because remember that the 96 Masters was when we all lost our minds.
That's right.
And he was 21 or something then, or 20.
Yeah.
But that was his because he played in Masters while he was still at Stanford as an amateur. Then he turned pro the next year, and was kind of all over the place his first Masters. But that second Masters, we were like, oh my God. People who never watched golf in their lives were watching golf. Restaurants that weren't even sports bars had the Masters on.
Like the 97 Masters?
Yeah.
So people who had never watched golf before would be sitting in an Italian restaurant in Chicago that wasn't even a sports bar. I'm not joking. Eating and watching Tiger in the Masters. As was just said, Eldrick Hunt, Tiger Woods, when he decides that he's going to play golf, where people can see him playing golf, he does it with one thing in mind, being the best guy out there. Now, if his body is holding him back a little, then he'll say, well, damn my body. I'm going to, he has that, what he brought to golf that we never really had before, this sort of reckless regard for, I mean, we don't usually think of golfers as tough guys for the most part, right?
Right.
But he's a legit tough guy. Like, in case you were wondering, I mean, all that training with the SEALs and crazy stuff like that was part of him embracing his inner tough guy. Because back to what I said about my, pettiness of greatness of pettiness, is he didn't just want to be a great golfer, right? He wanted to be a great athlete. Yeah. And it's hard to show you're a great athlete on a golf course until Tiger came along and decided he was going to make you know that I'm a great athlete.
Yeah.
You're going to
wear really tight shirts, see every single muscle in my upper body.
Right. I mean, you never saw Jack Nicklaus or Arnold Palmer doing that.
Exactly. Jack Nicklaus in a tight Nike shirt. Right.
Look what he did to the game, right? Every single guy on the tour has 3 or 4 weight training days. We got
a couple guys that look like that. You talk about safeties; they look like they could be middle linebackers.
Yeah, Koepka and right,
DeChambeau.
Right. Those two guys. No, those are Sam linebackers. Yeah, those guys are huge.
Sam linebacker. You're right.
I
saw Tiger shoot a 24 under at Warwick Hills in Grand Blanc, Michigan, at the Buick Open, and it was almost like, he shouldn't be allowed to play this course. This is a course for regular people. And they talked about how do we Tiger-proof the course. And the head of the tournament said, don't care what he shot. I'm not tiger proofing anything. I hope he comes back next year and shoots a 25 under. Yeah, because guess what? Y'all talking about it. So he changed the game. He changed the game so much.
I was a person that would occasionally check out.
Yep.
The big ones. I might check out TPC. I might check out, the Masters. Sometimes the British Open. I would watch golf 3-4 times a year. I would watch Tiger play. He could be playing in a scramble fun whatever thing. Be like, oh, Tiger's playing. So what Serena for me and her sister did for me with tennis, where I would watch tennis, but now I'm watching everything that they do. Right, I don't care where they're playing, Indian Wells or whatever. I don't care. What are you playing? Sure, I'll watch it. Sure. So Tiger changed the same way that Steph Curryized basketball. And I'm watching 9-year-olds, from the logo, right? I mean, these kids, their form is awful. They can barely get it up there, but they're trying to shoot threes.
Yeah, they're going to get it.
I see Jeffrey's here, so evidently we went way past our time. We're right.
Should have never let me talk about baseball. You should have never let me talk about baseball.
Well,
just
Jeffrey,
messed up the whole time.
We talked a little bit last week about SEC and ACC baseball. Is your season get ready to start down there, Jeffrey?
It's already started, hasn't it?
Yeah, they're into conference season in the ACC, and you've got Miami off to a good start. Virginia looks like the best team right now in the ACC. When they're good, they have
pitching matters, man.
Exactly, Bill. They've got. They had a series with, and they got hitters too. They were scoring double-digit runs against Georgia Tech this past weekend, lost the opener, which was a good win for Georgia Tech, and then their bats went crazy over the weekend. Notre Dame's been solid, and then after that, you got quite a few number of teams that'll make the tournament but are kind of jockeying for a position, like Georgia Tech, Florida State, North Carolina, Virginia Tech. Clemson got a good win over Georgia the other night. So they're going to put 8 or 9 teams into the field, but it probably looks like Virginia may be the only one that's a national seed. Maybe Notre Dame and Miami are going to be in the mix too, but Virginia looks like the best team in the conference right now.
Yeah, I want the ACC to stay in Notre Dame. I want to meet your parents. I want to meet your friends. Take me out in public. Right? That's what I want. I want the ACC to stop sneaking around and being a sneaky link for Notre Dame. Take us public.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Anything happening in the Big Ten there, Demetrius? As far as baseball?
No, I don't really follow Big Ten baseball. I don't. I follow Michigan State baseball, but as a conference, and I might have given you guys a wrong impression. I don't love the Big Ten conference. I love Michigan State. Like, I bleed green and white, guys. That's all I'm about. I know more about it in basketball, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert on Big Ten baseball.
Is Michigan State any good this year?
No. I mean, they're okay. They're okay. They're not going to be in the College World Series.
Just like they are, I'll let you know. If they were, you would have heard about it.
You would have already heard about it. That's been my final thoughts 3 weeks in
a row. Jeffrey. We talked about it last week, and I would play Demetrius, the old man, anybody but Duke. And then it happened.
Yep.
Now, there was a moment for me that was especially poignant. And yes, I'm gonna go there. I think it was with 1 minute and 49 seconds left. They showed Coach K's wife walking down, going over to the side with a big smile on her face in anticipation of her husband going on to the finals. And then the magic happened at 101. Jeffrey, I got my wish. Did you get yours?
I mean, I wanted to see an ACC team do well, but I didn't really have a preference in the game. I grew up a Tar Heel fan, but
Yes.
I did. I had like North Carolina gear when I was growing up, and I wore it in high school, and then okay, that changed when I went to school at Georgia Tech and spent time at Clemson too. So I mean, I like to see the ACC teams do well, but it's not the SEC. We're not claiming each other's titles or anything like that. But
Yeah, the SEC is kind of
Right.
incestuous.
yeah,
I love that. I love that.
but so I didn't really care who won the game, but I guess I had a little soft spot for the Tar Heels just from growing up that way.
Bill
Tar Heel
Hubie.
born and a Tar Heel bred, and when I die, be a Tar Heel dead set. Rock, go Heels, go.
The first time I went to a Georgia Tech North Carolina game, I almost had a hard time rooting for Georgia Tech because I'd been a Tar Heel fan so long. Everyone's asking me like, "Hey, aren't you?" Cause I think Georgia Tech even won the game, and they were like, "Aren't you excited?" I'm like, I don't know. I feel kind of weird about it. But okay, I got over that, but it was weird at first.
Bill Hubie wasn't even supposed to be there. He
So
wasn't even qualified to be coach of the Tar Heels.
So obviously, I became a sports fan in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I was the first sporting events I ever saw in person. I saw Don McCauley go nuts on NC State on my third birthday, 226 or something yards rushing. He just destroyed the Wolfpack. And he went on to have a nice little career with the Colts and one of the first sort of great receiving backs in the league. Third down, the ball's going, Burt Jones drops back. Oh, it's a 6-yard pass to Don McCauley. And then first basketball, game I ever saw in person was in the old Carmichael Auditorium, which smelled awful, but great basketball. I mean, it did. It had a little something in the air there. Besides team spirit. And, I watched Phil Ford and Mitch Kupchak and George Karl and all those boys down there. So, yes, I mean, I have a visceral dislike, not for Coach Krzyzewski. I think he's a very decent man. Captain Krzyzewski has served both his nation and the sport of basketball with honor. However, Duke, and particularly Duke's fans, I feel a particularly strong disdain for. Yes. Duke's fans are the worst. Oh my God. They are the worst. Now, when I was a kid, Duke's basketball team was not particularly good. So most of the Duke basketball arrogance or Duke fan arrogance was just about the fact they went to Duke. Not so much that Duke's sports were all that good. It was just the whole, that's all right. They used to literally chant sometimes, that's all right, that's okay, you're going to work for me someday. That was one of their actual chants, in case you were wondering. So why wouldn't we love them, right? What's not so enjoyable about that? But then to make it worse, they actually got good at basketball. Like they already were insufferable. But then Duke got good at basketball. At first, I was kind of with it, like, oh, now the rival will be cool again because Duke will stop being sort of a doormat. Well, that feeling went away pretty quickly. By about 1984, I was like, okay, enough of getting good. You guys can cool off on that. And then they wouldn't. They kept getting better and better. And I remember the watershed for me with Duke was when they got Mark Allery, a kid from Arizona, right? Bypasses Lute Olson, bypasses everything. Bobby Knight, right? The student, right? The student outdid the master when it came to getting Mark Allery. When Mark Allery came all the way across country, not to go to Kentucky, not to go to Carolina, not to go to Indiana, but to go to Duke, I was like, right. Then I knew now it's really on. And of course, the team he was on was Krzyzewski's first Final Four team with, Allery and Amaker and Quinn Snyder and Ala Abdelnaby and I guess you want to know the whole roster, so I don't have to do that. But the point is that I became very tired of Duke very quickly, and it just got worse and worse and worse. Like, oh, will they never stop? And so I'm sure their program will continue. Coach Krzyzewski will get. I don't know. Have they already put up a statue, Jeffrey? Is there already a statue?
You know, I want to say there's something in that Krzyzewskiville.
Right. Well, if there isn't a statue, there very soon will be one. And he deserves it. Like, I have nothing personal against him, but I definitely got a very strong, visceral sense of joy from watching the Blues. Yes.
What was your thoughts there, Demetrius? Even though you didn't have a dog in that race.
No, I am, though, like Bill is nicer at saying stuff to me. I'm not a Coach K guy. And not just because they knocked out Michigan State. Like, I think his image is largely driven by mainstream media, meaning the 4-letter devil. It's skewed, and it's just sort of readily accepted by the masses. I think there's another side to this guy. We kind of got glimpses, but we're not supposed to talk about it. I've heard enough stories, players, right?
Yep.
Stuff from players. And some we kind of know about it. We've heard. I know Jeffrey's heard these stories. It's just not accepted yet that you can badmouth Coach K. So I'm going to stick to the rules and just say, I recognize his contribution to the game. Congratulations on your success. Now, as Morris Day once said at the end of a Time concert, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. So see ya. I'm not a Coach K guy, so I got no flowers for him. I'm waiting for the 30 for 30 in about 5 years when it's okay to tell the real story about that dude.
Right.
Now let's go to the other side here, Jeffrey, because then in the second half of the title game, my hopes get completely dashed. But I don't blame it so much on the collapse of a North Carolina team, but their two best players got injured in the second half.
Right.
Exactly.
Which 19 points, historic comeback, but I also think there should be an asterisk behind that. But Jeff, what's your
thought? There will be. Don't worry. That's coming. That's coming.
What's your thoughts, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I mean, you knew Kansas was going to make a run. I mean, they're just too good, and you saw it during the tournament. That game was a game of runs. I mean, Kansas got out early, then North Carolina finished out the last 7-8 minutes really strong, and then Kansas opens up the first 7-8 minutes, gets the game tied. So I think maybe North Carolina was caught off a little bit off guard at how much pressure Kansas started applying and back into the game, but I definitely don't think it was a collapse at all, because once the game got tied, it was basically nip and tuck for the last 12 minutes of the game, and really it came down to just a couple of baskets. I mean, Remy Martin hits a 3 late in the game, and I thought that was a backbreaker for North Carolina. They had a couple of opportunities to tie the game or take the lead. They had several trips down the court and just couldn't get that shot to go down to take the lead. Caleb Love had a really rough game. He didn't shoot well from 3. Then there were some of the injuries. Baycock was definitely he gutted it out, but he wasn't 100%. There's no question about that. And then he gets hurt at the end of the game, right when North Carolina, I think, was down 1 at that point, and then he can't. He's not able to play defense. And Mannix, I think Carolina should have doubled at the end of the game, and Mannix was left alone. Kansas scores, and that's basically the difference in the game. So, yeah. I mean, I could definitely credit Kansas for that second half, knocking down big shots. I didn't look at it at all as a North Carolina collapse in any way. That was a back and forth, great final, the last 10, 11 minutes of the game.
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Demetrius?
Again, I don't have the luxury of being nice. I'm going off. Kansas doesn't deserve it. They're a bunch of cheaters. The FBI investigated him and found 5 level 1 violations. So this kind of pisses me off because I think Hubert Davis did a great job and Carolina deserved that title. And they were the better team on the court. If the floor isn't breaking up and kids are falling and all kinds of nonsense, I think Carolina wins that game. But more than that, Kansas shouldn't even be allowed in the tournament. I mean, it's real stuff. It's the old school violation, paying players, right? It's that we ain't gonna mess around with trickery and hocus pocus. We just gonna have the dude from Adidas hand you money. That's like 5 level 1 violations by the FBI. The FBI are like the best investigators in the world. These guys didn't just graduate from investigation night school. These are the best investigators in the world, and they have 5 level 1 violations. I'm proud of North Carolina. I root for them. I was impressed by them. Kansas shouldn't have even been allowed to play, much less be in this thing. I think, if you're going to try and if you want to clean up the game, and I'm not sure anybody does other than me, my righteousness is probably just me spitting in the wind. But if you want to do it, you cannot reward this. And in 5 years or 3 years, when they have to, quote unquote, vacate this title, it's not going to change what happened Monday night. It's not going to change the trophy that's not in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It's not going to change any of that, right? And we all know they're cheaters. It's not like we know it already. And so that irritates me because I'm not celebrating them. Bill Self's a cheater. I've never liked him anyway. I'm not giving Kansas any credit. I think Carolina was a better team that night. Hubert taking an 8 seed to the final game and outplaying them for most of 40 minutes. I think Carolina should still be celebrated. I don't care where the trophy is. I don't care what people in Kansas think. Carolina put together the best 3 weeks of anybody. They deserved it. That was a run. That was an impressive run that probably started in the ACC tournament. I'm impressed with Hubert Davis. To hell with Kansas. I'm not impressed with them at all. They're cheaters.
Yeah, they've Kansas flaunted it as bad as any team in college basketball this side of LSU when it came to what they were doing. I mean, they were shameless. They didn't even care. I think they had like one of the Midnight Madness pre-games, and they had. I remember thinking, man, like they don't even care about it. They had like money coming from the rafters, and Snoop Dogg was there. I kind of remember that.
Exactly.
I just couldn't believe it.
Like, are you kidding me? How are we going to ignore the investigation and just like let them win? Okay.
Well, Demetrius, you have made a friend of Jeffrey for the rest of your lives.
Yeah.
Bill, you want to talk about the game or the cheaters?
Well, I mean, I guess a little bit of both. So
we can do both, right?
Yeah, right. We can do both. First of all, if you just go player by player, just down the roster, Kansas has more NBA talent, right? I mean, whether they're better college basketball players or not is a whole other question. But if you were to say to an NBA scout, which team, is the one that more guys are going to one day play in the league from, they'd say Kansas, right? There's a couple of guys in Carolina I think will have to be good pros too. But an NBA team's more interested in more players at Kansas. And as was pointed out, these guys will be very used to getting paid to play basketball, right? They've had some experience at it, so it'll be an easier transition, I suppose. Bill Self is a bit of I guess they're all mercenaries, but Bill Self falls into a tradition. Like Jerry Tarkanian was a great coach, but he was always, just ahead of the posse, right? There was always somebody closing in on him everywhere he coached. Bill Self is not that far off, right? And obviously we talked earlier, or maybe not on this show, but we talked about what's his name at Calipari as another guy where there's always like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's like, yes, come here and get an education. I couldn't keep a straight face. So I mean, there's clearly some people, and once again, I get it. Like the game, especially with basketball, where you only have to stay 1 year, and it's not even really 1 year, right? I mean, by the time, if your team makes it to the tournament, by the time, if you're a freshman who knows you're not come back, you haven't gone to class since, I don't know, January, February, maybe. I mean, you haven't been to class in a minute, right? Because by the time you could become academically ineligible, you're already working out, already at the combine. You know what I mean? Like it's, so yeah, it's a bit of a farce already. And then you add to it, as as Jeffrey said it, right. I mean, it was like being at a strip club. It was like, oh yeah, it's money, just woohoo, you know. And I'm all for compensating the players. Like I've been saying that for years. Like, okay, you're basically giving them what in essence is a full-time job. People try to say it's a part-time. No, you've clearly never been a D1 athlete. There's nothing about it that's part-time. I mean, between film study and weight, you know, in the weight room and practices and travel. I mean, and then they do community stuff. Hey, we're reading to the first graders at you know, Aaron Burr Elementary or whatever. Like once you put all that stuff together, dude, it's a job. It's a straight up job. I remember back when I was a graduate student, there was an attempt to unionize the GAs, the graduate assistants, with AFSCME. And the University of Illinois, in all of its wisdom, says along the lines of, the reason you aren't employees is not just because you work the small number of hours, but because you're already getting a benefit beyond what a paycheck could ever do. You're getting a University of Illinois education, you know, at the graduate level, right? I mean, what could be better? We've already hit the lottery. What more could you want? We've come to a point where people now, I think, are starting to see college athletics for what they really have always been. I mean, in the Darrell K. Royal era at Texas, guys were getting, well, I guess, a $20 handshake in those days because $20 went further. But there's always been corruption. It's, you know, always. Nothing new. The two differences are now some of it's been put above the table. Now we have name, image, and likeness. But there's still plenty of below the table activity. Don't get it twisted. People will always look for the way to cheat, right? No matter what you legalize, they'll always still say, okay, well, what else can we do that no one else is doing? Right? So I'm very proud of my Tar Heels. I will always be proud of them, but particularly this year, because this was supposed to be a quote unquote down year in Carolina. I was hearing this all along. It's a down year. It's a down year. And to see you nailed it, James. Hubert Davis, if he's not coach of the year, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? That's coach of the year right there. That is the NCAA Division I coach of the year. He did a job and a half of getting a fair to Midland Carolina team to, as was just pointed out by Demetrius, basically come within a very narrow margin of beating what should have been a superior Kansas team, plus all the stuff that was mentioned about the cheating and the dirty, filthy cheating. And then, as he pointed out, the conditions, not ideal, right? Hey, that might injure you. That's not great. Carolina, always will love Carolina, but this was a year where I was especially proud of them.
I see Mr. Hayes is here. We haven't had.
Get out of here! Get out of here!
Don Hayes sighting. We got a Don Hayes sighting.
Don, how you doing this evening?
Maybe we get. There he is.
I'm alive. For the rumors.
All right.
Went out to eat at 6:00. I said I'll be in time, plenty of time for the show. Service was god awful. I just walked in the door. The food was great, but the service wasn't so good. So I'm here. I'm sober. So
as a bonus,
Jeffrey, he has to acknowledge that, Jeffrey. In case you're wondering, that has to be stated for the record.
We were talking about the title game, the NCAA, Kansas coming back from the 19-point deficit. What were your thoughts on that game?
That was an amazing thing to watch. That goes down probably as one of the most ballyhooed, most exciting Final Four games ever. Championship, not just Final Four, but championship. So we'll be talking about that for a while.
Right.
Congrats to Coach Self in Kansas, and they overcome those 2 losses to UT during the season, and just later. But I was, I guess sentimentally, I was kind of pulling for Duke in the tournament, but after that, I didn't care. I just wanted to watch a good game, and that's what we got.
Yep.
I guess maybe I was kind of going Kansas, Big 12 faithful, but it was a great game.
Jeffrey, when you talk about ACC games, of course, we know that's the first time that Duke and North Carolina had met in
The tournament.
the tournament. But Jeffrey, when you talk about the North Carolina Duke game and the North Carolina Kansas game, how do you rate those as among your best ACC national championships?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Duke Carolina game was a really high quality basketball game. I mean, you left that game knowing that those were the two of the five best teams in college basketball. It was a great game. There was great shot making in that game. North Carolina, Caleb Love knocking down that shot at the end of that game. It could have went either way. In terms of like all time, in recent years, I'm not sure anything could top that Gonzaga UCLA game in terms of pure shot making. But Duke and North Carolina was pretty close, and then the game with Kansas was a really good game too. We talked about that, and Kansas coming through in the end. But North Carolina did a fantastic job of acquitting themselves in that game. And you look at other games that had ACC teams in recent years. Virginia winning the national title, but it was actually probably the better game. That I think that it was the Elite Eight game where they hit the last second shot from Kihei Clark. Diakite, I think, was the one who hit that, and that was a back and forth game. I think it was with, I want to say, Purdue. I hope I'm not. It was either Purdue or Auburn, but I think it was Purdue, and yeah, that was Purdue, and that was a fantastic game with an ACC team. Going back a little bit further, I remember the Illinois North Carolina game. Uh, I think that was Roy Williams' first national championship in '05. And I remember, those were the two best teams in the country that whole year. And they played a really high level, high level, fantastic up and down game. That was a lot of fun to watch. And then for like me personally, it's the '03 Georgia Tech Final Four game where Will Bynum hits a shot in the last second to send Georgia Tech into the national championship game. So that one, from a personal standpoint, was one of my highlight games. I know they went on to play Connecticut in the national championship game and got beat pretty bad. Mecca Okafor just went off on Georgia Tech. They got down big and were never in that one. But that Final Four game was one of my very favorite personal games of all time.
Jeffrey, who reloads? Who do we see next year and come out of an ACC conference, possibly?
Well, I know North Carolina loses Brady Manick, but I think we saw the job that Hubert Davis did. I think they're going to be just fine. They got a good class coming in, and they're going to be in the mix the entire year. It wouldn't shock me at all if they make another run to the Final Four. We talked about it last week. Duke has, the number one class in all of college basketball coming back, and depending on who you listen to, a lot of people think John Shire was basically the coach this year. And they got to a Final Four. I mean, they get criticized by saying, "Oh, Coach K final season ends in a loss." But when you really look at the total of the season, I mean, they won 32 games, went to a Final Four, won the ACC regular season. I mean, it was really a good season by any measure, and I think they're going to be very good next year too. So, I mean, I think Duke and North Carolina will be Final Four caliber type teams. I think Virginia is going to be a lot better than what you saw this year. They really just lacked a shooter. I think Florida State is going to be back. They could be next year's Miami. Miami last year had a ton of injuries, and then you saw how good they were when they were healthy. And Florida State just had a ton of injuries this year too. And Leonard Hamilton, I mean, he knows what he's doing. He's a future Hall of Famer. I think you'll see Florida State really rebound next year too.
Well, as always, Jeffrey, we thank you for coming and talking to Final Four with us. We'll be talking spring football next. So good having you. Why don't you give us your final thoughts? Tell everybody where they can find you on social media and any articles you have coming out.
Yeah, you can find us at allsportsdiscussion.com. Blogging about the ACC mostly, but a lot of other college sports as well. You can find me on Twitter at Talkin' ACC Sports, and this tournament. This is like a final thought here. I mean, this really last year was a lot of fun because the tournament was back after the COVID and pause, but it still was just lacking something because you didn't quite have the fans the way you were used to. But this year you did. I mean, it really felt like March Madness. St. Peter's was such a great story. They were great games, great Final Four, and it's a little bit of a shame that sometimes the NCAA tournament overshadows college basketball in the regular season, but they really do make up for it. The ratings for it were great. And I kind of hope we see a little bit resurgence of college basketball because as opposed to football, I mean, yeah, Kansas, the blue blood ended up winning it, but, the ride is so much more fun, than the postseason in football where it's basically just going to be, the best SEC team and maybe a Clemson or Ohio State sneaks in there, but it's really a small group that has any success in the postseason. So, I mean, I really enjoyed the tournament this year.
All right, Jeffrey. Well, hey, thanks so much, man. I'll be back in Chechen. We can get back in and talk some more ACC sports.
Yeah, sounds
see you,
good. Thanks
Jeffrey.
for having me. Thanks, guys.
Good to see
you
you.
again.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Don, what's been going on, man? It's been a little while since we've seen you. Tell us what's been happening down there in Texas.
So I got asked to be the scorekeeper PA person for our girls soccer. I'm good friends with our soccer coach, and she said, "Hey, I hate to ask you last minute." And so I said, "Okay, they're terrible, short season. Well, they made the playoffs." So I've watched a lot of soccer the last few years because I help, but I don't really have the appreciation I guess I should have, but I did it for a friend, and there are games on Thursday nights, and it just kind of happened that way. And I don't know if you know about soccer. They never stop the clock.
No.
Right.
But when the ref does this, you got to stop it, and then they kind of like arbitrarily add time.
Yeah, extra time.
Yes.
Some subjective number, whatever he feels like.
I'm like, come on, guys, it's girls soccer.
He's back.
I know. All we need is a Ranger Hayes sighting, and it is a complete sports. Did I hear him earlier? I thought I heard him earlier.
I was going to say, I thought I heard Ranger earlier. We haven't seen him yet.
Yeah,
Ranger.
He's downstairs.
But he made his presence known. Don,
Exactly.
your Spurs are in the play-in rather than the Lakers. What's your thoughts on that?
Actually, they're playing Minnesota. I was listening to a little bit of the game coming in, but yeah, they're surprised. They kind of a shocker of a season because expectations are very low, and they exceed those expectations. So, in Pop we trust, as we say. He's the winningest coach in NBA history for a reason.
Yep.
And he took a bunch of no names and he's got them being competitive.
He took a bunch of no names.
Yeah, I think to me,
Go ahead.
as long as Greg Charles, yet another middle name Charles, Greg Charles Popovich is the coach, the Spurs are in. I mean, they're just like default into minimum the playing game. He's that good. He understands players. He understands relationships. There are very few coaches I get jealous of. Like the Pistons had a guy named Chuck Daly years ago, and I remember thinking that was the first coach that I said the coach matters, because there was a bunch of guys on that Piston team, and he was a relationship manager. He was a basketball lifer and knew the game backwards and forwards, but with the bad boy Pistons, he was a relationship manager. And I don't love coaches in general, but Chuck Daly is my all-time favorite. But right behind him, as a human being and as a coach, is Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich is an amazing man. He's a better dude than he is a basketball coach. So I'm not surprised at all that the Spurs. Greg Popovich is a great coach.
There was a certain amount of intimidation that came with Coach Daly. Also, you didn't just pump your chest up.
But it was the suits and the hair. When Chuck Daly walked in the room, everybody was like, "Damn, who is that?" Right? If you didn't know him, because he was clean. His tie was straight. His suit was coordinated. His hair was immaculate. And then he would sit down and teach you about basketball because he knew everything about the game of basketball. Right? Chuck Daly was awesome.
Bill, Magic said that LeBron was to blame for the Lakers passing on DeRozan. Of course, we also say that about Hield. We say that about a couple other guys, and we always say that it was LeBron's fault for bringing Westbrook in. But is it fair to criticize LeBron for LA's roster this year, Bill?
Yes. Next question.
Boy, hey, Don, hurry up before Bill changes his mind.
Well, yeah, Bill's giving up time. If Bill's giving up time, that's awesome. I'll jump in. Don. Let me take some of this, because I do want to state the thing. Like, first of all, it's coming from Irvin. This is not coming from some rando who doesn't know the inner workings of the Los Angeles Lakers. This is coming from like somebody who's involved in that and who's been through this. He got a coach fired. I don't know if you guys are watching Winning Time, but I'm old enough to remember the demise of Paul Westhead. Right? Right? We're old enough to remember that. He did this. Magic knows what it's like to do it, what it's like to get criticized for it. He knows it. And when you're LeBron and you get to that level where you want the credit, and 2 years ago in the bubble, people gave him credit for orchestrating the Anthony Davis trade. Well, here's the other side of that. Because you could have had Buddy Hield. You could have had DeMar DeRozan, and you chose Russell Westbrook. I am not even anti-Russ, because I know who Russ was. We all did. Russ was a bad fit. It's not Russ is a bad player or a bad guy. Right. Russ was a bad fit. That's all it was. The other guys were better fits. And LeBron, because they allowed him to, made the wrong choice. And it doesn't make it the end of the world. They made the wrong choice. And now it has set the team back for probably 4 or 5 years, unless somebody comes in and does something stupid and saves them. But yeah, Magic, first of all, Magic, my point was, Magic can criticize anybody about anything Laker related, and I'm good with it. Because it's Irvin. He's earned that right. And he's been through everything LeBron's been through. And he's correct, by the way. He happens to be dead on accurate that he deserves to be criticized. So he took the flowers in the bubble when they won it all. He's got to take the criticism now.
Yep.
What do you think, Don?
I agree. Magic Johnson, was the face of the Lakers for many, many, many years. Some people say, well, Jabbar, but no, it was Magic. He was just the guy. And whenever something comes up Laker related, he's going to give his opinion, tell you where he's coming from, where he sees it. So,
yep.
I think he calls it like he sees it, and I think a lot of people see it as he sees it. If that makes sense.
And there's nothing you could do about it. Even if you disagree with him, it's Magic. Where do you can't say anything.
Well, Demetrius, let's go a step further, because Don mentioned him, and Magic wasn't the only one that criticized LeBron. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar also had some remarks. that toward LeBron that were based on well, people say that they were based on the fact that he's going uh, his scoring record is going to be erased by LeBron next year, and that he won't be relevant anymore. But when you have Kareem and Magic coming out, talking about how you've tarnished the Laker brand and reputation, what's your thoughts on that, Demetrius? Are they right?
It's slightly different. Yeah. Well, here's the thing: you got to know Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You got to understand the story of Lou Alcindor and how he became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And if you don't already know it, you can watch the show on HBO. They do a really good job of telling it. It's called Winning Time. And it's entertaining as hell. It might not all be 100% true, but based on the 2 biographies I read about Kareem, his Kareem's an OG activist. Kareem's a legit activist, not one of these new school carrying a flag. Kareem is a legit activist, right? And has been for 50 years or something like that. So you have to understand, coming from an OG activist.
Demetrius, the one that you want to watch is called Kareem, A Minority of One. That tells you more about
that's what I'm getting
about
to.
the real Kareem.
This is who he's been his whole life. He doesn't have a whole lot of tolerance for nonsense and stuff like gesturing during games. That stuff will never resonate with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It will never resonate. That's not who he is. Like I said, he's a badass activist, old school when it meant something. And so he sees stuff now, and there's a degree of old man, black socks on his porch. Hey, you stupid kids, get off my grass. There's a degree of that to it, but he is an OG activist. So when he looks at something like how you handle COVID with this new school and world be flat, he's like, yo, you're not changing the world by refusing to take a shot. I did real shit to change the world. I did real stuff that impacted our lives. You refusing to take a shot is not improving the lives of other people that look like us or people that don't look like us. Doesn't even matter. Right. So I can see him like just not having a tolerance for some of this really sort of soft new age, activism stuff. So when he sees LeBron supporting, I think it was Andrew Wiggins, he could legitimately be offended. The Kareem, the introspective thinker, because Kareem thinks on another level. This is not some world be flat stuff. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is one of the smartest men any of us know. It's brilliant, right? So he sees this stuff of Andrew Wiggins refusing to take the vaccine and LeBron supporting it in some kind of brotherhood nonsense. And I can see him be like, what? That's not brotherhood. That's not how any of this works. I've done this. I know how to do this. And I think he just like gesturing and just some of the stuff they do now doesn't resonate with him. And the old school activist that comes out of him is like, man, ain't nobody got time for that bull. Right. I could see that. And again, I agree with Kareem. I might be the old guy thing. I think Magic was right, and I think Kareem's right. So I'm gonna take them both. It has nothing to do with him passing. Kareem doesn't give a damn about that record. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at this age, with the accomplishments he has in the way he sees the world, he's got so much bigger things that go through his mind on a daily basis. He does not care about that record. He may have at one point in his life. I don't think he does now.
What do you think, Don? Do you think that like it really means that much to Kareem about the record, or do you think it's about the way the game has changed, the way the players have changed? I mean, I think he's still in that Tim Duncan type of mode. David Robinson, I mean, did David Robinson ever celebrate a basket going down the court? I can't remember. I mean, but what's your thoughts there, Don? I mean, you have criticism from 2 of the most prestigious Lakers of all time.
I heard the expression "old school activist." Keep in mind, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is old enough to be these people's grandfather.
Yep.
Yeah. These kids that they cry racism around everything and race cards. Well, Jabbar actually saw that. I mean, when he saw it, it was legit. I mean, it was not, let's go on Facebook and see what's racist today, or let's go to Instagram or Twitter, or let's see, where we're being oppressed and all that. He actually experienced it. So, he's speaking from a place, of course, he's older than I am, but he's not that much older than I am. I mean, Kareem is old enough to be my older brother.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say let's not get personal there because he's only 2 years younger than I am. So
I'm about to say you're in that sibling mode. But so like Magic is kind of probably more my generation, but when they speak, you have to listen. It's like E.F. Hutton, no commercial. When E.F. Hutton speaks, you got to listen. That is what I think about those two.
Bill, I mean, we always criticize, the old guy, with the black socks on the porch, but like I said, I mean, this isn't like it was, the number 14 and number 15 off the bench. These are the cream of the crop when it comes to the Lakers. So I understand it's a different time and different game, but has LeBron actually tarnished the brand itself?
Well, I mean, I don't know what we mean by tarnish the brand. I mean, as far as I know, he didn't commit a murder. I mean, I think tarnish the brand might be a bit much. But what we've realized, and I'm reminded of a sort of a Bill O'Brien joke, right? How Bill O'Brien lost his job with the Texans because of a lack of communication between the head coach and the general manager. And of course, he was the general manager. But the issue with LeBron as a front office executive is that he still is looking at the team as a player, right? He's not thinking about salary implications. He's not thinking about the aging of the team. He's still thinking about who do I want to play with, as opposed to how should this team be constructed. There is a precious few truly great basketball players who've made the transition to the front office, or really any sport, and been great. Jerry West, of course, is the paragon. Like Jerry West has been so great at so many different things, right? And shout out to the actor who's playing it, a character who's truly not Jerry West, but inspired by Jerry West, I probably should say, because the real Jerry West was not quite that entertaining, but he was a tremendous, executive, and the thing, of course, he waited till he retired to start putting teams together. So obviously, in the case of LeBron, he's doing it while he's still playing. It's impossible to really do that well, right? Or darn close to it, because you're not looking at, tape of kids who are going to be drafted coming out of college. You're not going to G League games. You're not getting tape over from, Italy and Ghana and all these other places. I mean, basketball is truly a world sport, right? This is where it's different to some extent from, hockey sort of. Baseball is essentially, North America, Central America, Japan, so the Caribbean, Japan. They're not scouting kids in Ghana yet. They're not scouting kids in Russia yet for major leagues. But basketball is truly a world sport. There's I think the only continents not represented in the NBA are Antarctica and that might be it, right?
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because
the Pistons have an Australian kid.
There's kids from Australia. There's multiple kids. Patty Mills is one of them, and obviously Ben Simmons being. But there's multiple. Luke Weddington was from Australia too, right? There's been multiple Australians. There's Central Europeans. You could put together a very nice squad, an all-star team of just dudes from Central Europe. There's kids from England. There's kids from. It's truly a world sport. South America, Central America. I don't know if there's a Mexican in the league right now. I think there is, actually, right? Oh, well, I guess Devin Booker kind of is half, but whatever. The point is that, it's difficult to name a place, a continent, well, I guess is one, that doesn't have some representation in the NBA. There's no way you could adequately be an executive, a player personnel executive while you're still playing. Even as great as LeBron is, it's impossible. You can't do it. So he's just thinking of guys he likes. guys he wants to play with. And that's cool, but he should be going to a GM with these things, right? That's what should happen. And the GM can then look at what is this person going to cost? How long will you be able to play at an elite level? Is there a better option, right? Who's available? It might even cost us less. That's what GMs do. They listen to coaches, listen to players, and they say, okay, that's cool. But here's what we're doing, and here's why it's better for the team. So, yes, LeBron deserves his share of the blame, but also the people that have over-empowered LeBron within the organization also deserve some blame. There should be some people saying, man, LeBron, that's cool. Hey, I love that you've got input, right? I love that you got ideas. And then they should say, but here's why we're doing this instead. That's the problem. You have to have someone who can say, LeBron, no. If you don't have someone who's powerful enough with the organization to say no to LeBron, then you don't have an organization, right? You have a LeBron what's the word I'm looking for?
Collective. That's what you
right.
And you're a LeBron collective.
Right. And you're empowering him to the point where it's detrimental not only to the team, but even to him. Like, he shouldn't be trying to think this way. Concentrate on winning basketball games, right? Playing basketball.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And here's your weekly segue, James. For the record, there's one Mexican player in the league. He plays for Golden State Warriors. His name is Juan Anderson. That happens to be the team that Steph Curry plays on. Bam. You're welcome, James.
Okay, so, guys, I'd like to make a Mexican NBA reference myself.
Oh, boy.
Several years ago.
Yeah, Pop had, didn't Pop have one?
Well, no, several years ago, I was at school in a gym, and there was this tall, 6'9" Hispanic man shooting hoops. And I called my friend Tony. I said, "Who's that guy?" He goes, "Oh, he's from Mexico, and he's actually going to be going to Cornerstone." I said, "Oh, he's not coming to East Central?" He goes, "Nah, he's just here in the gym shooting around." His name was Eduardo Naranja.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he played at Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
And then he played in the NBA. I think maybe it was with the Mavericks. Maybe. I remember.
Yep.
Yeah, I know it was one of those Texas teams. That's why I was thinking it was.
Anyway, he was from Mexico, but his family moved him to San Antonio to go to Cornerstone Church School, and from there he went to Oklahoma. But I got to meet him in the gym at East Central High School.
Cool.
See, yeah.
Cornerstone Christian Academy makes an appearance on the Sports Crib. Nice.
Have you heard of Cornerstone before?
I have.
Yeah. It's like
I have friends in
it's
San
like a
Antonio
franchise or something, right?
Yeah, one of their kids attended. Yeah.
They've been trying to establish. They're trying to make themselves into a powerhouse football, basketball. I think, in fact, their quarterback this year is signed with Tennessee. He was one of those Friday Night Tyke alumni.
Nice. We got Mike in the house.
Yeah.
What's up, gentlemen?
We were going to segue into my Steph Curry question.
Yeah, I tried. But Mike's here now. We got to get the football. Mike's here now.
Mike's here now. So
when that big C pops on the screen, it's NFL time. We know how this works.
So, guys, welcome to the NFL portion of our show. And let's get
do Mike and Don know each other? I don't know if I've been on a podcast.
I think Mike.
You guys familiar with each other? No?
Yeah, we've been on you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There.
I can't remember. All right, go. Yeah. All right, cool.
Us white folks hang out sometimes.
Yeah, we do.
For me, it was just a dude from Dallas and a University of Michigan grad that is a fan of the Colts, but I believe lives in Northern California. Mike's a complicated dude, so I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you guys were familiar with each other.
Mike, you live in Northern California?
Yes, sir. It's Sacramento.
Oh, Sacktown.
Right? How complicated is that? And he roots for the University of Michigan and has Colts gear all over the house.
Yep, Colts. I'm a double fan, and it's. I don't know where my roots are. I mean, New Jersey, New York,
he's
Indiana. I'm all over the place. I don't know.
Don't say Ann Arbor, Michigan, and you're probably okay.
Well,
Mike,
we don't want to talk about the best school in Michigan, so I'll give you a reprieve.
I always talk about the
shots
best
fired.
school in Michigan. I always talk about the best school in Michigan. No, go ahead.
All right, guys. Let's talk NFL. Then this way we don't have to worry about that because there's only
Exactly.
one football team in Michigan.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, as usual, I'm looking around for things to talk about, and as it was so easy when I was talking about baseball, once again I can go right to the mistake on the lake. The Haslams admit that they didn't know what they were doing when they were buying the clowns. Mike, do you think that most owners buying a team is a matter of prestige rather than a matter of business?
I think probably some for this and some for that. I would hate to see, like, if I'm going to spend money, unless I'm like an ultra billionaire and like, $40 billion team doesn't mean much to me, then I'd be doing it for prestige. But that's just not smart business. You know what I mean? You don't do things for how you look. You do things because you want to put the money and return on a value. So I certainly hope that wasn't the answer as far as, prestige.
Don, that sounds like a good answer, but what about that guy named Jerry Jones?
Hey,
Was that really business?
as I give Jerry Jones, I can say, well, at least he's not Bud Adams, the former owner of the Houston Oilers. He was god off, but yeah, so some of these owners, like Jerry Jones, I know he played football at Arkansas, and he was friends with Barry Switzer and Jimmy Johnson and Fred Akers, but you know what? I think Ken Hatfield was on that team also, but he has great business sense. He become a bit stupid, but when it comes to his Cowboys, he does some crazy shit stuff. I mean, and he says stuff, and he was able to get that deal with bring Jimmy Johnson in. Jimmy Johnson just knew he only knew one thing: he had to win, and he's screwed up ever since. He went from the Cowboys having two coaches, Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, and now he had coach turnover, and so I think that's reflection on the fact that he doesn't have as much sense as you think he does. Of course, what's going on with the Browns? At least they came out and said, "Well, we really don't know what we're doing." At least they didn't try to hide behind the facade that they were, experts or anything like that. So at least they had the guts to come out and say, "We don't know what we're doing."
Oh my goodness! There's someone else here, and guys, I want you to. I want you to know that I'm very surprised to see Mr. Scott, because he has been quiet as a church mouse since he made that ridiculous statement here on the Sports Crib about Duke versus the field. But we'll get into that later on because we're not talking basketball now. But welcome, Mr. Scott. How you doing tonight?
Greetings. I'm sure, James has been pontificating and telling his version of things.
Don't make me rewind the tape. Don't make me rewind the tape. What was that? You were bragging about how far you were ahead, and I'll give you Duke versus the field. And then I hadn't heard from you, not a word until tonight. But anyway, that's all right. Because, Mr. Scott, we were talking about owners. And we were talking about how the Haslams, when they bought the Clowns, they admitted that they did not know what they were doing. So do you think that most NFL owners, it's more a matter of prestige to own a team, or is it a viable business?
Well, it's deep pockets. And, when you talk about owners, I have to kind of tie this to the Watson thing with Watson and his supposed discretions with these go and get massages and all this kind of stuff. Well, what about the owner of the Patriots? What about Mr. Kraft? What about what he did?
Well, he didn't do DoorDash. He didn't do DoorDash. He went to the establishment.
And it's on tape. Okay, nothing happened. And then his team, the New England Patriots, Photogate, taping teams, Ballgate, and then they had the nerve, and then their coach had the nerve to make Brady take the fall. He had to sit out 4 games. Brady said, "I didn't do anything. I don't have nothing to do with the balls. I play football. I throw the ball. I don't have nothing to do with that." He had to sit out 4 games behind that. And so, they say that Belichick's the greatest coach in the game. Oh, come on. Don Shula, Vince Lombardi, Hank Stram. Come on. Bud Grant, even though he couldn't win one, even with all the talent he had, he couldn't, he didn't win one, went 4 times.
Bill,
Marv
what's your thoughts
Levy,
on this?
guys that win a lot. Yep.
What's your thought? Is it about the prestige or is it about the business, Bill?
Yes. So if you're super, super rich, 2 things. I mean, some people just inherit it, but assuming you didn't just inherit, like I said, plutocratic levels of wealth, and some of them did, but a good number of them were entrepreneurs of some sort. Mr. Shad Khan and a few other guys of the owners were, with their generation, their family members, their friends, they're the first ones to be rich, right? Jerry Jones, even, right? I mean, he wasn't born rich or anything like that. And yes, he was more than just friends. Well, he and Jerry were roommates, right? Road roommates, because it was alphabetical at Arkansas, and played on a national championship team. I mean, national champs in those days were decided by the AP and UPI, pollsters or whatever. But so you didn't play for it, but they won the Cotton Bowl and had an undefeated season, were awarded a national championship. Jerry knows football at the level of like a super knowledgeable fan who played football at a high level. We probably have friends and family members who could say that. I mean, Don, you played at Texas, right? There's not a higher level of college football than playing at the University of Texas. So you've coached, right? You've actually coached football, which Jerry cannot say, except in his own mind. So his, decisions to get involved in things that are not just involved. He's the general manager, so I guess he has to be involved. But the last time somebody was an owner / general manager, of course, was Al Davis. And Al Davis, when he was, at the top of his game, was good as we've ever seen at doing both. But since then, he's the only one who's attempted to do both, to be an actual general manager and be a primary owner, or even a partial owner. Even the people who are not primary owners don't try to do that. That brings with it certain pitfalls, because the strength of it is that, obviously you've got buy-in. The general manager doesn't worry about talking the owner into anything. They've got a lot of buy-in there. The downside, of course, is once the owner / general manager has something in their head, even if that something they have in their head is incorrect, it's a lot of work, right? Between Steven and his, eyeglass polishing, and Will McClay, who's one of the better talent evaluators in the game, but sometimes they have to work extra hard because they've got, Jerry, who gets it in his head sometimes. I mean, they had to work so hard to keep him from going after, especially when he starts sliding in the draft, to stop him from drafting Jonathan Paul Manziel, because he got all excited when he saw Manziel sliding. And they are like, no, Jerry, it's not what we discussed. This is not the plan. It's not the plan, They were able to, but that was a fight. Like, they had to really, 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 really stop him, because they came very close to ending up with him. But think about it. If you've got a yacht and you're a billionaire, no one else has a yacht, all your billionaire friends. If you have a private plane, no one else has a private plane, all your billionaire friends. Heck, even millionaires can afford a private plane. But if you have an NFL franchise, how many of those are there? Anyone? 32, right? Right. Okay. So it's 32. Your billionaire buddies, unless they're also an NFL owner, but most of them aren't, right? Once you leave that league meeting, the next whoever else you meet, no matter how rich they are, cannot say, "Oh, I've got an NFL franchise too," right? That's a very exclusive club, my friends. That's a very exclusive club. So but it's also, I mean, these are obviously very rich people, but that money's nothing to sneeze at, and that money comes no matter what. You could be the worst business person in America. If you hand someone an NFL franchise, you're going to make money. You can't avoid it. You can't avoid making money. An NFL franchise, they all make money all the time, no matter what, no matter how poorly run they are. There is no way to not make money. Trust me, Mark Davis has tried, and still he's making money. So if people who are wildly bad at business are still making a lot of money owning NFL franchises, that tells you everything you need to know. You can't fail. There's no way not to make money.
Demetrius, you're all about the stats. Is it prestige or is it business?
Well, to Bill's answer, yes, it's both. And it depends on who you are. So there's two distinct groups of owners. There might be a third. There's the group Bill talked about. I inherited my team. Jim Irsay, Mark Davis, Janice McNair, Mike Brown. There's a bunch of these guys. Sheila Hamp, right? Who my own team. Yeah, Sheila Ford Hamp. Their intrinsic motivation is to hold up the family name. That prestige, the pressure of that prestige is there when they get the team. So it's like, I don't want to let my parents' last name down. That's what that is. So for them, they've had prestige. Sheila Ford Hamp's parents were Martha Firestone. Yeah, Firestone and William Clay Ford. Those are her parents, right? So she comes from generational wealth, like 5 levels up. She already has prestige, right? And so that's not a thing for her. For her, it is about her parents and a legacy, right? But then you've got guys like Tepper, who's a hedge fund guy. You've got Haslam, Pilot Flying J. You've got Arthur Blank, Home Depot. You've got Jerry Jones. You got oil drilling guy, who I can't remember, out of Edmonton, who owns one of the teams I can't remember. But these guys, yes, sorry, the Ravens. No, not the Ravens. Biscotti's the Ravens. I can't remember. The Bill, Buffalo. That's what it is. So you got these people who have made their money by creating their own wealth. They've built some other business. What they often don't understand is building up Home Depot or Pilot Flying J or whatever your other business was is not the same as running an NFL team. So they make mistakes by trying to make the decisions and drive their NFL team the way they drove their business. So it is two distinct deals. For some of those guys, for almost none of them is it an investment. Arthur Blank's money will come from Home Depot. It will always come from Home Depot. Whatever he's making on the Falcons, and he's making really good money, I feel fairly comfortable he's making a shit ton more with Home Depot. So his money is solid. He doesn't need the Falcons to make money. If they do, it's cool, and they do. He wants to win. Jerry Jones wants to win. Haslam's want to win. Pilot Flying J, even after all of the FBI troubles, we've all been to a Pilot or Flying J on some road trip. That money's not going anywhere. So I think both of them can exist. And within the ownership of NFL teams, there are groups of both. There's a prestige that Sheila Ford Hamp, like I said, Virginia McCaskey, these guys have. It came to them when they were born, right? So they've got to hold up the family name. And then there's these self-made billionaires who think, I'm a self-made billionaire, so I can run an NFL team. So they're out to prove something to the inherited kid people. So right, it's within that group, right? So there's both. There's both in there.
Demetrius, Pete Carroll, he addressed the hiring practices last week at the league's meetings. And he said it was, you can't change things until you change the owner's thinking. But
Right.
we also saw Pete Carroll publicly embrace uh, Colin Kaepernick. But he didn't bring him into camp. He didn't hire him.
Right.
So is he just as big a hypocrite as the owners that he's talking about?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think because I think there's two things. One, he at least said it, and so all due respect to my two Caucasian friends on this podcast, there is a difference between those allies, as we like to call them, who will listen and who will tacitly support us. But when a white dude, a 70-year-old white dude, goes out and says it out loud, puts his name on it, he's not hiding behind a screen or any other stuff. A dude who's respected in his profession, it matters. Yes, we don't forget that you canceled the workout for Kaepernick back in 2018. I don't forget that. That's on your record too, bro. But I have to respect that. Most of them won't say it publicly and put their name on it. If they're with their black colleagues, or I got your back, I'm with you, I support you. But going out there and saying it when he didn't have to, there is some credit deserved for that. But here's the only problem is this, and this is usually the case. Bill Carroll and I said this, 6 weeks ago when we were talking about Brian Flores. We said this. We talked about the whole construct of hiring, and I even admitted that I was guilty in my own professional life. When I got to a leadership role, I made 9 hires in 18 months. I did not hire a single white man. I know I'm not a racist, but I hired women and people of color. Why? Not because of racism, it's because your comfort level is with people who remind you of you, people who look like you, people you feel more comfortable trusting and talking to. So while it is systemic and it is absolutely racism, it is also a degree of human nature, right? That's why it's important that a white guy, a 70-year-old white guy, says it. Because when Brian Flores says it, it gets all muddled up in nonsense. They don't want to hear it. Now, 2 other coaches join his lawsuit. They don't want to hear it. We need about 25 more white coaches to say it and mean it. That's when it goes next level. We've been saying it for 562 years, right? We need more people to say it. So I will give him credit for saying it, because a lot of them who might truly believe it in their heart, they're not saying it. They're not putting their name on it. For him to come out and say, owners, he works for one of the owners. When you don't get this, you don't get this. It's not going to really change until you act differently. That's just truth. He might end up paying for it, but he's set now, so he didn't really sacrifice anything. So I'm not gonna pat him on the back too hard. I do appreciate that he said it out loud and put his name on it, and a lot of allies won't do that.
Don, what's your thoughts about the Pete Carroll remarks?
Okay, so I'm gonna plead ignorant once again. I wasn't even aware Carroll said anything, so I'll defer.
Yeah. I'll just read the statement for you because I got it right in front of me.
I've been doing girls soccer, guys. Come on.
He said basically, until owners get to know the candidates before they actually have interviews, like owners get involved in the hiring process and understand that they have to hire people who are different than them. It's not going to change. It is a simple statement, but it's something we've been saying for years. Literally, Bill Carroll and I said this 6 weeks ago when Flores was hired. You've got to take the chance. The Steelers do it. There are organizations who've done it. You've got to hire people that don't look like you, that don't remind you of you. Is there a certain degree of risk to that? Of course. And like I said, I was as guilty as anyone. I was as guilty as anyone. It's a human nature thing. But these are the only 32 people who can change this. The Rooney Rule is cute, but ineffective. These 32 people have to act differently, period. Sorry, I just took Don's time. He gave it up, though, so I went ahead and took it. All right, I'm good now. You guys can go ahead.
What do you think, Mr. Scott?
All these things, our race thing is the elephant in the room. That's just the way it goes in this country. And, I can think of one thing. When I was a supervisor at Hennepin County Child Protection social workers, and I could hire whoever I wanted. And this girl comes in who had all this experience, but she was from 50 miles away in Wisconsin, white girl. But she knew all about social work. And I said, can she come in and work in my unit? Half of the people, most of the people in my unit were black and from the neighborhood and from here, but I hired her. Okay. And so I'm taking her around the show. She had never been to Minneapolis before, even though she lived 30 or 40 miles away from Minneapolis, had never been to Minneapolis in her life. And I said, oh, man, I don't know how this, but there was the skill there. And then in the wintertime, what this girl did is she got a little apartment, 1-room apartment somewhere. Now, she had a family in Wisconsin, so that she could be at work on time, so she wouldn't miss court, so she wouldn't. And so what it comes down to me, is the people that really want to do the job. It doesn't really matter. And I know, James, you had asked me about Doug Sutherland, who just passed with the Vikings.
Yeah, we'll go get down to that one as we
But it just comes to me. That thing just comes down to Kaepernick has been given a raw deal. There's no reason that he shouldn't have been given a chance with somebody. I mean, brought into camp and just show that if he can or can't do it. I mean, that whole thing to me is a blatant thing against him for something that's a natural thing. He just took a knee, made a little stance, and so he can't get a job anymore.
The Vikings
with his talent.
The Vikings haven't been calling him either, Mr. Scott.
Oh, I know it. Nobody has. And the whole thing against him. I'm talking about the league. I'm talking about the league against Kaepernick. Nobody. As many of these teams that need a quarterback, as many of these teams that need somebody to not give him a chance. I mean, that's just blatant. I mean, that's a bad deal. He just got a raw deal, and I don't understand it, but they've all stuck together on it. Nobody's given him a chance.
Mike, what's your thoughts on Pete Carroll's remarks?
Well, I think the first thing what they say is to understand or recognize the problem and start talking about the problem, and I think that's pretty cool on Pete Carroll's part. I mean, he's out there talking about Colin Kaepernick and saying, hey, let's bring him in, let's sign him, or let's do this, but nothing's ever done. And now he's talking about this. Well, okay, that's cool. Great. I'm glad you're talking about it, but what are you going to do about it? And that's the thing right now is we all know, anybody following football knows this is a problem. So him talking about it, great, but do something about it. Until he does something about it, then I don't really care what he says about it. You man up and you do it. And until that's done, okay, cool.
Bill, what's your thoughts on this? Kind of summing this up for us, because I mean, Pete Carroll's not a manager. I mean, an owner. He does, he does carry a certain amount of prestige, being in the NFL as long as he has, and it's a good thing, for everyone. As Mike says, it's someone speaking out, but we've been shouting for 400 years.
Right. So Pete Carroll, as you mentioned, has been around a long time. He's been an assistant coach in the college and pro level. He's been a head coach at the college and pro level. He might be even a guy that has a shot to make the Hall of Fame in both college and pro football Hall of Fame, which not so rare for players, extremely rare for coaches. I think that he's always been a guy that isn't afraid to make it clear that he backs someone that he believes in. I think that he's a guy that has a high level of, I know how to read, character, or I know how to read people, or whatever it is that people who think of themselves as intuitive tell themselves. But unless you're 100% sold on Colin Kaepernick, and I don't think there's an NFL team that is, all of them are a little bit afraid, right? Some are more than a little bit afraid of it, right? What he represents not only as a player, but his symbolic importance. It will be challenging, as this civil suit and other things begin to unfold, for people to continue. Well, I mean, if they care, which many of them won't. Let me scratch the I say. But for those who care, I think we're about to see a lot of interesting documents, a lot of interesting information float its way, to the surface as Senior Bowls and all these other things begin to be coming within reach.
Let's see. Oh yes, wide receivers. Another wide receiver gets paid. Stephon Diggs is getting 104 mil, supposedly 70 mil guaranteed with an extension from the Bills. Don, was this too soon, or was it too risky not for the Bills not to give Diggs an extension?
Oh, they should give him everything. I think he's underpaid. You want me to keep up with inflation? 170 million. That's like 40 million 2 years ago. Come on. No, but all kidding aside, hey, the NFL, it's been going for a while. Receivers, quarterbacks, it's an arms race. Everyone is one up and one up and one up, and and as long as we're talking about owners, and fools and their money are soon separated. They pay this extraordinary amount of money to guys who are great. They pay large amounts of money to guys who are above average. They pay large amounts of money to people who are average. And they pay large amounts to people who will probably be cut next year. That's just the way it seems to be going trending. So the Bills, if they want to throw out that kind of money, I think Diggs is a great player, but that's money that I may not be willing to spend, but I'm kind of a tightwad as it is. So
that's why you live in Texas, Don.
Hey, no income tax. Love it.
Mr. Scott, Mr. Scott, what did you think about the Bills extending Stephon Diggs? Too soon, or could they afford, to lose him?
Well, these receivers have become divas. Ever since, the Terrell and Randy Moss, and these guys have become divas. And I think the Bills were faced with a thing. If we don't keep this guy happy, he can probably disrupt the whole team, because everybody, Devontae got paid, other people get paid. You see these other people get paid. So, I think he just pretty much forced their hand, because these receivers, if they come in and if they're upset, that's very disruptive. They become very diva-ish to me, these receivers. So Diggs, I think in football, what probably Don knows, you got to get the money while you can, because this thing can, one play and this thing can be all over with. So I think he's brought something to the team. I think the young quarterback likes Diggs. I think that they'll probably get a couple of good years with this combination. The whole team is built up. Buffalo is looking better than they have in years. So I guess I have to say he's worth it. I wish he was here, but by getting rid of him, we get Jefferson. And Jefferson is going to be here long after Diggs is gone, or is going to be playing long after Diggs is gone. So, I think that they he kind of forced their hand. It's probably a good move for them. They're a team on the rise. They want to do things, and they don't want any disruption, so they went ahead and paid.
Bill, what's your thoughts on the extension for Diggs?
Woo! One is I wish he and I become friends. I've been watching him since he and Dion Long, who transferred in from New Mexico, were Mike Locksley's sort of two big wow moments for him in terms of recruiting, and I've watched him ever since. He's a complete receiver, with the exception of just rare deep speed. He has everything else you want. He can handle press. He can avoid press sometimes even. He tracks the ball at an elite level. He's a great receiver. He's a great true number one receiver. The amount of money he's getting. So, fun fact, when Moneyball began, they had a decent sized payroll and then they started shedding payroll, right? I mean, admittedly, this is not a team that's on the verge of the Super Bowl. I get certain decisions. Well, maybe they are. Maybe they are on the verge of the Super Bowl. Maybe that's what they're saying. We're on the verge of winning the Super Bowl. Here's a little something extra. But you're supposed to be thinking contingency plans, which isn't sexy or fun, but there's all these things you could be doing, right? If you don't love this particular draft, you try to trade down. I mean, there's a bunch of things you can do. This felt like a lot of things, but it a little bit of a flinch, right? It felt like a flinch. It felt like somebody not wanting to buy into something that they were trying to find a way to buy into, mostly because somebody else told them they should like it, or I don't know. This has been an interesting draft. This has been an interesting year, and Stephon Diggs deserves to be paid. Well, I mean, maybe not that much, but paid a lot. And he got paid. He got the bag. And of course, I hope that Stephon Diggs continues to play at a high level, elite level. He and Allen have something special, and obviously, I'm hoping that he does, like many players do, that he also gets really established and active in the philanthropic community.
Mike, your thoughts?
Well, I've learned to turn off what these players make a long time ago because I always thought it was ridiculous. They're going out playing football that anybody can do and getting paid whatever God's amount of money that they're getting paid. But as far as a team, this is great. This is great for the Bills. As Bill was mentioning, you have one of the best wide receivers, great route runner, and does all the other things that Bill was talking about. And just that terrific tandem that he has with Josh Allen. So you want to lock that down as quickly as possible because most teams don't have that. I mean, you can go through 20, 25 teams that don't have that quarterback to wide receiver connection like the Bills do with Allen and Stephon Diggs. So absolutely, do you want to wrap that up? This will probably take him to the end of his career because he's like 28, 29 years old. So if it's not the end of his career, it's definitely he's just sticking around for whatever reasons. So 100%, I think this was a great decision for both parties.
Demetrius, what were your thoughts?
Two of them, and I'll be quick. One, Buffalo's in that window. They're in that window where they have an opportunity, right? They've got that quarterback. This was a no-brainer. You had to do this because Mike can give you the numbers. To me, if you have Stephon Diggs rated anywhere lower than what, Mike, 5, 6? Stephon Diggs is top 6, 7 receiver in this league. Mm-hmm. And if you've got one and you've got the quarterback, and all of us would agree they're one of the teams in the AFC that's got a shot, right? You don't let them go. And then my second part is I never understand, and I don't think Mike meant it this way, but when people go, oh, they're just making too much money. No, they're not. No, they're not. Your value is not what me or Mike or Mr. Scott says it is. You know what your value is? Your value is what somebody else is willing to pay you. So whenever some player grabs a bag of money, we love the term, he got the bag. Before that, there was a billionaire who called somebody and said, hey, fill up a bag with money and put it on Stephon Diggs' porch. All Stephon Diggs did was open the door and grab the bag, right? He deserves every penny because that's the way his value is what somebody else is willing to pay him. And the Bills said, you deserve all of this. And all he did was say, okay. And I did a speech once at a Big Brothers thing. And a guy was saying this and we ended up talking about this. And I said, my mother worked at a GM plant in Flint, Michigan. She put doors on Buick LeSabres. If my mother could have gotten 30,000 people to watch her put doors on Buick LeSabres and pay the park and pay for the hot dogs and millions of people on TV would watch my mom put doors on Buick LeSabres, the owner of GM, the president of GM would have given her pins to choose from to sign the contract. They would have paid her a bag of money to do it. I'm team player 100%. I have never been mad at a single player for getting ungodly amounts of money. You know why? Because it means There's a billionaire who is fine giving that dude ungodly amounts of money. So take the bag and run. But Stephon Diggs deserves every bit of it, and it was a smart move for Buffalo. It was good for everybody.
Speaking of good for everybody, smart moves. Demetrius, HBO Hard Knocks is going to be featuring the Lions. We've had your GM, Mr. Brad Holmes, say that they've had talks with several teams about trading the number 2 pick. And then to top it off, the Motor City is also going to be hosting the 2024 draft. Big things happening for your city and your team, Demetrius.
Yes, sir.
Talk to us.
First of all, mute Mr. Scott because I ain't here for that nonsense right now. It's going too well. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I think it's Brad Holmes is about to show everybody in the next year or two, exactly what he is. I've been talking him up already for 6 or 8 months. I think they have put themselves in a position with the draft. And I don't know if you guys watched a movie called Draft Day, the most absurd movie ever made. There was no realism in Draft Day. But I love the point where Sonny Weaver is Kevin Costner's character, the GM of the Browns. He put a note in his pocket. There was this underlying theme in the whole movie of what's on the note, right? And ultimately it said Vontae Mack no matter what, right? So the note in Brad Holmes' pocket should say, trade back no matter what. The number 2 pick is an asset. There's some good players, and there are people, particularly in this area, Mike's kind of people saying, "Oh, take Aiden Hutchinson." I'm sure Aiden Hutchinson is going to be a fine pro. The value of that pick is that there are multiple teams who have 2 picks in this draft. What you can get for that pick, the chart, and I actually have printed one of these off. I'm that kind of draft geek. The point value is there are a couple teams. I want to say the Eagles and maybe the Saints. Both have both of their number 1s plus either a 1 next year or like a 2 and a 4. So if somebody wants to make me drop from 2 to say 14 and 18, plus you're going to give me a 2 this year and a 3 next year, that's how you build your roster, because you also have 32. I don't give a damn about the number 2 pick. I think it's an asset. Brad Holmes is smart. He's going to use that asset. Now, if there's a player there he feels is worth it and nobody brings him a good enough offer, he's going to get a really good football player at number 2. I know that guy knows how to evaluate talent. As far as the draft and Hard Knocks is going to be entertaining as hell, guys. I'm telling you, set your DVRs right now. I don't care how you feel about the Lions. That's going to be an entertaining 6 weeks of TV. Right. And the draft is going to bring millions of dollars into downtown Detroit, which I am always for. I think people are going to get to see the city coming back. My city has had a tough decade and a half, but what people don't know is that we are on the rise and have been for a few years now. That area in downtown Detroit is amazing, and people are going to get to see it. People are going to get to experience it. The draft is going to be a really good weekend for my city. Hard Knocks is going to be a good 6 weeks of TV. And by the way, my teams are going to get better. By the time we get to the 24 draft, we're going to be a team that people, give a damn about. And see, I told you, mute him, man. Just cut his picture off. I don't even want to hear it. I just want to cut his picture off. And it's okay, because he ain't going to come around when we're good. And I have to remind him that in the 2 games against the Vikings last year, we beat them down for one of our 3 wins, and the other one they won on a record-setting field goal as time expired. I'm not sure why he feels so comfortable talking shit to me right now. I gotta be honest. I don't get it, but good. All these things are great for my team and my city, and I'm happy about it. Obviously.
Well, Mr. Scott, you want to talk to us about the late Mr. Doug Sutherland, a member of the Purple People Eaters, and what are you expecting from that new Vikings offensive coordinator? And what are you going to do about that D?
Well, first I'll respond to Demetrius. I love his city. I love his city. When I go to Detroit, I go to Floods. That's my place, the club downtown. That's why I ran into hit man. All of a sudden, I see a limo out there. Who comes in with the hit man? Tommy Hearns. and he comes up to me like he knows me. He just, brother, what's happening?
Everybody,
man,
everybody. Tommy Harris do that.
I
With
love you, but your team, your football, your teams, and I'm a little worried about your baseball team because I think they really have improved. Not worried about football because everybody makes their living in the Central Division on them. But
wow.
Sutherland, I have to really say he was really that Vikings fearsome force and purple people eaters. My dad used to say the best defensive ends he ever seen was Jones and Carl Eller. And I have to go with that since Dad said it. And he was part of, him, Gary Larson. They fill that gap between Jim Marshall, who should be in the Hall of Fame,
Could be.
Alan Page, and Carl Eller. Now, the reason Jim Marshall's not in the Hall of Fame is because he ran the wrong way. And I think that if the people remember that, I watched that game. I never forget. Me and my brother were watching that game, and he picked up the fumble, and he's running, and everybody's saying, stop. And he runs the wrong way, gets in the end zone, slams the ball down. But no, Sutherland, I'm telling you, steady for many years. And see, these guys back then, he was like a 300th draft choice. I mean, the draft was like 15, 16, 17 rounds. They played maybe 16 exhibition games to get ready for the season. I mean, this guy endured. I mean, he played with the best. He was part of what I think is one of the greatest defensive lines in football. And I went to a 50-year reunion once at the Viking Stadium, and it was really something to see all these guys come out because a lot of them were on walkers, canes. I mean, it was really something to see what they go through to play football. So no, Sutherland warrior, a warrior, one of the great Viking teams. 4 Super Bowls, no wins, and I guess the first one is the one that really got me because I thought that was a slam dunk. I thought that was, and I'll never forget when they announced the Kansas City team: Bobby Bell, Aaron Brown, Willie Lanier, Emmett Thomas, Mike, running back, Gloucester Richardson. I said, "Oh man, this don't really look too good." Where are all these guys? Curly Culp. I'm like, where are all these guys come from? I never heard of these guys before. And the funny thing about losing that game is the next season they played them at the first game at the Met Stadium here, and the Vikings ran them off the field. But those days of football, it was so different. Where field position, Fred Cox, they would try to get to the 30-yard line before they let him kick it. He wouldn't miss. They wouldn't try 40, 50. No, we're going to punt the ball. But it was a whole different game in that era. But I enjoyed it. I mean, I played in that era in high school anyway.
So, what do you think about your new offensive coordinator?
I think the new regime is good. I like the acquisitions. I like, I know Bill is a real analytics and really thinks the GM we have, along with the coach, the offensive coordinator. I think everything's in place if they get this line fixed. That's been their kind of bugaboo for the last few years, is having a really good offensive line. If they get that fixed, I think the division is theirs. We won't have to worry about the Lions. The Bears are, just kind of coming back, they're always kind of pesky for us for some reason. Green Bay, we'll see, if they get someone else.
But Mr. Scott, what are you going to do with that D? I mean, you guys 3 seconds away from advancing.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see it. We'll have to see about the defense. I I got to see who comes into camp. What as Bill said, this analytics. Maybe the analytics is going to pull something out of the hat, pull rabbits out.
Yeah.
We'll
What is the
see.
wager? Lions Vikings. I'm willing to say the Lions are going to win both games. Tell me what the wager is so I can know what I can get.
Well,
from
just
it.
give it to me now. Just this is my. I'll give you my cash thing, and you can just send it now. I mean,
Okay.
that's
Yep. You can
why-
tell Mr.
why
King what the
wait?
wager is. We can do individual games. We can do the sweep. We can do point spreads. I don't care. Whatever you want.
Okay. Well, we'll
Shots
get
fired.
together. We'll get together on that.
Yeah, we'll settle this off air. We'll settle it off air. I have no doubts. No doubts. We beat them basically twice last year, and we're a much better team. So that's
Well,
great.
Basic. This is not on the thing. Basic. I mean, that's,
Oh my
can't wait.
goodness.
I can't wait.
Uh,
Fair warning, Bill and Mike. Lions,
and I
Vikings,
will be in
the show
Detroit.
following
I will-
those games,
I will be
I'm
in
going to be an
Detroit.
asshole. You guys know it.
I will be in
Sorry.
Detroit this summer. I will be there.
Okay.
And so I'm going
All
to
right,
go
you
to a
let me
ball
know.
game. I love their stadium. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah, we can go to a game.
And Pittsburgh's going to be visiting you too, so don't forget about that. You haven't got off the hook for that one yet either. But Mike, the Colts,
this year. Boy, this is great.
the Colts still have holes at wide receiver and offensive tackle. Mike, what's with the you guys got a whole bag full of money there. Everybody else talking about leaving a bag of money here, leaving a bag of money there. The Colts seem like they're trying to hold on to that bag of money. What's the deal? What's going on here?
Yeah, they always hold on to money. They love to resign players that are already there. They're a very much more in-house kind of team.
Yep.
I think Quentin Nelson is going to be due, and he's talking about bags. That dude's going to have multiple bags, and those kind of things. So they were at 70 million when Carson Wentz was gone, and of course once they signed Ryan, that ate up I think 50 of that 70. So they're still over, but they're not anywhere near what they were once they traded Carson Wentz.
Bill,
Yes.
the Texans and wide receiver Brandon Cooks. Is it going to be cheaper to keep him, or is it going to give him trading?
Well, they paid him. So unless the team to whom they're trading him wants to pay him what you're paying him, I mean that's gonna be a tough thing to pull off. It's not impossible, but it's hard because when people talk about it's even more true in the NBA. But when you're trading somebody, especially someone you just re-signed to big money, that's a tough trade to make. So it happens occasionally that's a basketball thing, sign and trade. You don't see it so much in the NFL.
No. Let's see.
But shout out to Johnny Taylor, by the way. We ain't just gonna let that go. When you drop a cheaper to keeper reference, you gotta get that man his acknowledgement. That's all I'm saying.
Showing my age once again. You might.
It's all right. Showing mine too. Showing mine too. Ain't nothing wrong with that. If you showing your age by acknowledging Johnny Taylor, ain't no shame in that.
Last $2. Last $2. That's what you're all going to be talking about.
Right. I was going to say I was going to try to work in some way to say the Texans salary cap is now down to the last $2.
Last $2.
I always have to throw those music references in there.
I love it. I love it.
For Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott is aspiring to be the next what do they call it? The senior rap artist. Yeah.
Nice. Well, we know how much he loves rap music. I remember that from that Monday night. That Mr. Scott's a big hip hop.
Mr. Scott, Emmett says that the Cowboys' problems are execution, not talent. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I think you guys have already talked about their problem, Jerry Jones. I think Dak seems to be. He was hurt the 1 year, and he's back. I just don't know what to say about the Cowboys. I think they should be good, but for some reason it just every year it just doesn't. I think Dak is a great quarterback, but my friends down in Texas, they can't stand him. And so I don't. I guess I'm not a good commentator on the Cowboys. Um yeah, that's my only comment on them. I just they're an anomaly to me.
Well, yeah.
What's your thoughts on the Cowboys and Emmett Smith's remarks, Mike?
I think it is partially execution, but a lot of it is just play calling. I mean, you have CeeDee Lamb, who is a pretty dang good wide receiver, top maybe 10, 12 wide receiver. And he disappears for like the last 6 weeks of the season. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So I think a lot of it is execution, but a lot of it is just play calling and where they want to direct the offense. And a lot of that is a lot of mouths to feed. At that time, Cooper was there, and then Michael Gallup until he got hurt, and so maybe they overloaded themselves with talent and was trying to figure out how to disperse it, and they didn't disperse it very well. So I agree in a sense that a lot of that is execution. We can go back to the last play of the Cowboys where Dak Prescott forgets to fall down, 2 seconds earlier, where he should have got to the yard line and stopped, but didn't and went further. And you're just like, that's just poor execution. But then you also got these other situations where the offensive play calling hasn't been the greatest either. So I think it's a myriad of both.
And is that running back really that good? Is there running back? Sometimes I worry about, is he really that good? I mean, they say he's a feature back, but I haven't seen it.
Are you talking Ezekiel Elliott or Tony Pollard?
Yeah, right,
Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah.
I think he's sort of on his, he's 27, 28, and he's had a lot of injuries and a lot of carries. So the last season wasn't what we know Ezekiel Elliott to be. So I think you definitely spot something there, and we'll see how he does this year. But last year, he just wasn't Ezekiel Elliott, whether that's just too many carries or injuries or what. But there were a lot of times where you're just like, who is this guy?
Demetrius, what's your thoughts on this? Mr. Scott points out to Dak Prescott, but he's also thinks that Kirk Cousins is a quarterback too. So I mean,
Kirk Cousins went to Michigan State.
Putting words in people's mouth again. There we go.
Kirk Cousins is the smartest quarterback in NFL history, mostly because he went to Michigan State.
Right.
He's got the most bags of money of anybody. Right. But as far as Emmett's comments, I say, duh. Yeah, execution and talent go together. Like talented players execute better, more consistently throughout the game when they're fresh, when they're tired, than less talented players. I agree with you, Emmett. Congratulations. You can put together a coherent, smart sentence. Yeah, because that makes sense. The problem is execution, and that is directly related to talent. So I probably agree and disagree. I don't know. I guess I agree with him because it's clear, but it's both. I mean, I think that's what Mike was saying much more eloquently than I did. I think he said they're obviously tied together. And Emmett probably meant that anyway. I hope he did anyway.
What's your thoughts on Emmett's comments there, Bill?
Well, I mean, Emmitt Smith, of course, obviously is a legend, but he watches. I'm sure probably watches almost every game or several games each year. First of all, they have had a lot of injuries to the point that the strength of the team, as recently as 2018-19, was the offensive line. Clearly the strength of the team, like not even to be argued. and a combination of injuries, some surprise retirements, right? No one saw, some of those, like Travis Frederick's, whatever, it was sort of a surprise one, but they had some other retirements that were not so surprising. And then they still have Tyron Smith, but he's no longer the Tyron Smith. I don't think he's no longer the Tyron Smith that was, like an all-pro guy. He's now a really solid guy, but he's not who he was at his peak. So they've had either through injury or changes they've made in scheme, their offensive line is no longer the bulwark that supports the rest of the team. We've got to find something. So I believe they're going to go back to being a defensive team and try a mix of, throwing the ball various places in the field where Kirk Cousins is comfortable throwing the football. As was pointed out, he's obviously very highly touted and rated by recruiting analysts, but his actual play is usually good enough to get you to a certain point, and then things happen. And you could, I guess, with some fairness, say the same thing about a guy like Rain Dakota Prescott, right? You get a fair amount of very high level, in fact, play during the regular season, and he, like the team itself, seems to run into a wall in the playoffs. And yes, I would agree with what Mr. Scott said. There's the old Italian saying about a fish rots from the head down. The team needs to create at some point a separation between church and state, right? You can allow Jerry to send emails, write notes, even make phone calls to people about what he thinks should happen in the draft, but you can't have him in the draft room, right? Or at least not in the capacity of a general manager. I guess it could be in the capacity of an owner. And owners, with the exception of Jerry Jones, they have interests. They have people they like over other people, and they ask questions. They even sometimes will, start discussions. But they aren't ones who say, "Nope, we're not taking this player. We're taking that player." Because if you're doing that, you don't need a director of college scouting. Right? I mean, if you're going to overrule people or come in and say this is what's going to happen instead, then you don't need those people. So everyone else said, I agree with all of the previous points that were made and what everyone else said. But yeah, to me, the main issue here is, as was said, finding a way so that your team on the operations side and on the, all the other sort of non-playing football stuff, all the doesn't have to do with getting guys ready to play football, are incredibly important, more important than most people realize, because we focus so much on stuff that's specific to players playing, but there's so many things that go into addressing how you manage to keep a team afloat when you do get ravaged by injury and all the other things that happen each year. But yeah, my, gun to my head or whatever, I'm going with Butcher.
Bill, the Eagles and the Saints make a big trade. The Eagles now get 15. They get 101, my favorite number, in the third round. They get 237 in the seventh round.
Yep.
And they get a 2023 first round pick and a second round pick in 2024.
Yep.
The Eagles are now at number 15 and number 18. The Saints are at number 16 and 19. Bill, is this trade overrated? And also, does it send a message to Jalen Hurts, considering that we have a pretty good graduating quarterback class in 2023?
Okay, I'll answer in order. No and maybe. The clear no is that if you are good at making use of draft capital, you can make almost anything happen, right? You can make the draft your own personal polo pony and ride that thing all over the place. So Howie Roseman has rightly been criticized about certain things, right? Everyone talks about the list of guys that you could have had when this receiver was taking over that receiver. Could have had DK Metcalf, right? You could have had, like, they go through the list, right, of all the guys you could have had instead. And, with the JJ Arcega-Whiteside, and then obviously what happened, when they ventured out back into the wide receiver market and got from TCU, Rager, instead of, and once again, initiate list of players you could have had. Those things you have to wear. Those are things that, but what he's done, But what he's done in terms of maneuvering and setting up things, and if indeed they do decide to move on from Jalen Hurts, they have a good setup that would allow them to do so. If they decide to build around Jalen Hurts, they have a lot that they could use to build around it. Like it's a very enviable position where the Eagles are. And instead of saying I want money now, they said I want money. It's almost like the Bonilla thing. I want to keep getting money for years. So they are set up in such a way that they're going to have these extra picks, which they will parlay into more extra picks, right? Some of these are going to be players. They're going to pick, but some of these they're going to deal some more of these. I don't think the Eagles are done. I think the Eagles are still probably maybe one, maybe even two more deals away from, being done by the time they get around to, when camp rolls up into summer, closes into summer. There'll be some guys who aren't on the team now who will be, and vice versa, obviously. But yeah, I agree with, once again, what people said.
Mike, what's your thoughts on this big trade and the repercussions thereof?
I think it's good for both teams because I believe the Eagles are probably going to get a top flight wide receiver because right now all they have is Devontae Smith and all those mistakes that Bill pointed out. They could have got Justin Jefferson over Jalen Reagor, and they just totally botched the heck out of that. So they've just had a problem after problem picking wide receivers. So again, they'll go back to the well. Hopefully they can pick someone as good as Devontae Smith.
Yes.
And then on the flip side, you have now they're going to be in position to draft a quarterback. So I think this is going to be a great situation for both teams. They're both in now prime position to get what they want. Will that happen? Who knows? Drafts are crazy. So who knows that's going to happen. But I think that's the idea of why they made these trades.
Demetrius, your thoughts?
I think to answer your question, the trade is not overrated. I actually think as a trade, if you evaluate it, it is fantastic because it is good for both teams, right? And that's the ideal trade is nobody loses. I think it's smart for both teams. I think the word I would pick is maneuverability, right? Bill talked a little bit about it. What draft capital gives you the ability to do is a lot of things. You can select a player. If a guy you love is there and you like the value, you can take him. But you can also move. And one of the smartest, sneakiest, quietest things that are done, you will see it in a couple of weeks. Somebody is going to come up from early to mid-second and get into the late first, right? It's most likely going to be to draft one of those quarterbacks because you get that 50-year option on the first round contract, right? That kind of maneuverability you can do when you've got a bunch of bonus picks in your back pocket, right? In a perfect draft, you want to come away from a draft with 7, 8 players. That'd be great. But if there's a dude that you think he's a difference maker, you're willing to give up so when you bag extra picks in some of these moves, and Philly is being smart, they have flexibility this year and next year. So if they don't really like any of these quarterbacks, they can give Jalen Hurts other weapons and give him an opportunity, much like the Lions are trying to do with Jared Goff, to still show us. We're giving you another shot to show us. And if it turns out it's not, then they got 2 picks next year, and they can maneuver for Stroud or Bryce or whatever they're trying to do. So I think the trade is good. I think Jalen Hurts is not good enough for there to ever not be a gun to his head. Every day on the roster, you need to prove yourself because you haven't yet. And until you do, knowing that next year there's a better set of quarterbacks coming out, no matter what they did with the picks, Jalen Hurts should come into camp thinking that way anyway.
What's your thoughts on that, Mr. Scott?
Well, both of these teams to me just seem pretty much middle of the road. I mean, they're not quite Lions-like, but they're just middle of the road type teams. And the draft and all that, it comes down to your homework. It just comes down to homework. I mean, right now they're just numbers. And if they want receivers, looks like where you should go is probably Alabama, because I think Alabama had all of their even the guys that didn't start was a top draft pick last year. So they traded one for the other. I mean, they're both kind of middling teams. I don't expect much from either of them really. as far as making a whole lot of noise in the NFL. But that's just like I say, they're not Lions like, but they're just in the middle of the pack like.
They are not Lions like. You are correct. Lions are going to be better than both those teams. Lions are going to be better than both those teams.
Mr. Scott, Sam Darnold says that he's at ease with the Panthers pursuing a quarterback. He says, "I'm a good quarterback. I proved it." Has he really, Mr. Scott?
No, not at all. Again, he's another one of these guys that doesn't have the panache. That he plays the high profile position, but I mean, just because you sit in the king's chair doesn't make you a king. I mean, everybody wants to sit in the king's chair, but so no, they're rebuilding. They're I don't think Sam Darnold is a real franchise type quarterback. And again, these things with quarterbacks is who you have around you. The running backs always hurt. Who do you have on your how's your defense coming? How's your they're about like the Lions. I would say they're more Lions like.
What in the blue hell's happening here tonight? Mike, I'm gonna sign off early, Mr. King. If you don't mute this man soon, I'm gonna just need you to cut his microphone.
You got oh my goodness. Bill, what's your thoughts about Sam Darnold? I'm a good quarterback and I proved it.
Well, I mean, what's he supposed to say? I'm trash and I proved it. Yeah,
Be honest.
right. I mean, it would be honest, but I don't think I've ever heard a professional athlete, open a press conference saying, "Man, do I stink? Woo!" Like, I mean, jeez. I frankly, I'm embarrassed. You should be embarrassed that you're talking to me. But that's not what they do. Like, nobody opens a press conference that just, says, "Woof." I mean, I can't believe they pay me to do this. So you have to believe, whether it's true or not, you have to believe in yourself if you're going to be even a little bit successful as an athlete. And Sam Darnold's yet another guy who came out early who wasn't ready. And I think the majority of quarterbacks who come out early aren't ready. When Jameis came out as a redshirt sophomore, I said, I believe in his talent, but I believe he's going to end up slowing his growth as a player because there's so many things he has to try to pick up in the very compressed and difficult environment of an NFL training camp. And people always say, "Oh, when so-and-so gets NFL coaching, they'll take off. There's needed." And I don't think people realize how time's allotted in the NFL. You're trying to beat Bill Belichick. You're trying to beat the Rams. You're trying to regardless of what division you're in or whatever. But most of what you do is specific game planning for a specific team to beat them in a specific way. And if you're not good at something as a player, they'll give you notes on it, but they're not going to spend half an hour or an hour with you fixing it. They don't have time. So Sam Darnold still has some level of talent. If everything worked out perfectly for him, he could get to the Tony Romo level, but things have not worked out for him. And I mean, first of all, and once again, I don't want to call the Jets the graveyard of quarterbacks, but take a look the next time you just get super bored of, quarterbacks they've drafted and what occurred, what took, Browning Nagel, we hardly knew you. Like, there's a long list, right? There's a long list.
Went deep on that one, man.
Well, I mean,
you're right. That's just a great pull, man.
It's been a minute, man. It's been. I mean, look at the list. Richard Todd had a nice career, but quarterbacks they have drafted, not guys they got through trade or free agency. Look at the list of quarterbacks they have drafted and developed themselves in that franchise. I mean, obviously they kind of hit with Joe Willie Namath, and Richard Todd was, solid, but I mean, Ken O'Brien came out of the 83 class and, obviously he went later, but in the 83, draft class, it's sort of, you talk about these guys up here, and then there's Ken O'Brien, right? So, he had an okay run, but he couldn't be compared favorably, at least, to the other guys from in the first round of that 83 draft class. Like the rest of them, with the exception of Todd
Blackledge,
right? I mean, all the rest of them were somewhere between very good and great, right? So O'Brien was all right, and Blackledge was a flat-out bust. But, in that amazing draft class, they had a shot at Marino, and they were like, we're good with Ken O'Brien, right?
Whoops.
Right. Whoops. So, and like I said, I mean, look at the list, man. It's quite a list.
Again, Bill's being nice again. Sam Darnold's a bum. Next topic. Sam Darnold's a bum. Next topic.
Chad Pennington wasn't too bad. 2000.
Actually, thank you. There we go. Chad Pennington. If not for a
justify Sam Darnold.
I mean, you guys went way back. Why not throw Ryan Leaf in there? I mean, what the hell?
Well, they didn't draft
No,
him.
it was not the Jets. They're trying to blame the Jets for Sam Darnold being a bum. And so then they went deep to justify it. While I respect the attempt, I respect their game in going Browning Nagel. I respect that. At the end of the day, Sam Darnold's a bum, and he's had 2 opportunities with 2 teams. And I'm sorry. It is what it is.
Yeah,
I'm agreeing. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying.
You're being nice about it, though.
Well, I'm just saying, but it's not just a minor trend. I mean, they've had a bad run at the quarterback position
for years.
We can put some culpability on the Jets, but we're after dark. We can be honest now. Shit, it's 10:30 in the Central Time Zone. We can just say Sam Darnold's a bum. Those guys out west haven't had dinner yet, so they still got to be nice, but. I think the 3 of us are in the Central Time Zone, me, you, and Mr. Scott. We can say Sam Darnold's a bum. Next topic.
Mike, without Coach Payton, left tackle Armstead, safety Williams, the retirement of Jenkins, and the trades with the Saints, and the trades with the Eagles, are the Saints reloading or rebuilding?
Well, it seems like right now they're sort of reloading, but they need to tear that thing down big time because of all those contracts and just being over the cap. I like how they are and just all those kind of problems that they're facing with very, very limited talent. Jameis Winston is your best player. That's not saying a lot. I mean, you could definitely say Mike Thomas, but we don't even know what Mike Thomas is right now. Guy hasn't seen the field in a year and a half. He had that one playoff game where he scored 1 touchdown, and then prior to that, he didn't even have a touchdown. So he has 1 touchdown in 2 years. Now, am I saying Michael Thomas is done? No, but until he can prove he isn't, that's a long time to not see the football field. Then it's a problem. And so defensive wise is not so great. Offensive wise, not so great. Alvin Kamara, we even know what Alvin Kamara is? He suspended? What's going on with that? Alvin Kamara is lucky because of Deshaun Watson and Deshaun Watson's problems, or Alvin Kamara would be in the forefront of all his violence and that kind of stuff. So I don't really know what to make of this team right now. All I know is it's bad. They're in a bad situation with the salary cap, and so whatever you want to call it, it's not good.
You want to give us your thoughts on the Saints, Demetrius? Are they rebuilding or are they reloading?
Now, reloading is the bullshit that bad teams say when they don't want to admit they're rebuilding. So good teams don't talk about reloading or rebuilding. They just make moves and keep winning. I am not to even tee up some nonsense for Mr. Scott. I am familiar with a team that has frequently used the term reloading. No, we got to build before we can rebuild. So I know what that looks like. I've seen that movie. I know what that's me accepting, Mr. Scott, the team that I root for. You don't need to say nothing right now. You can let me have this one. I'm saying it for you, right? So I know what that looks like.
My last word, I'll make just one quick comment. In talking about bums, we have to start with Jared Goff. If we're talking about
All right,
bums,
now you done
I
messed
mean,
up.
we've
Mute his
I've
mic.
heard the word
Mute his
bum.
microphone.
I've heard the word
Mute his
bum
microphone.
thrown around. So
No, he's
Yeah,
way
but
better. Way better than Sam Darnold.
hold on, Mr.
No.
Scott, because at no time during this broadcast did I mention Baker Mayfield. So let's get that clear. Anyway, so
Look,
now,
I'll finish up by saying this: there's no such thing as reloading. You're either good, you're staying good, or you're rebuilding. Reloading is a cute little catchphrase that bad teams that don't want to admit they're rebuilding. The Saints are in trouble. Look at the list of guys that left. Marcus Williams is a great safety. They lost some really good players. Their cap is still a mess because they tried to get in on Deshaun Watson. Everything Mike said is right. Whatever you want to call it, it ain't good. That's the simple way to put it. Call it what you want. It ain't good.
well, guys, let's get into our last topic for the evening, and I'm going to start this off with you, Mr. Scott, and you can answer this and give us your final thoughts for the evening. I'm talking about Bobby Wagner. He's brought his talents to the Super Bowl champion Rams, but along with the loss of Von Miller, the Rams also lost nose tackle Sebastian Joseph Day. They lost cornerback Darius Williams, and they lost guard Austin Colbert, and Wentworth retires. So, Mr. Scott, will the Rams be able to replace the depth that made them the Super Bowl champions?
yeah, that typically happens with teams that win like that. Everybody wants to get paid, and so it typically happens where people. And then people will want them because they've been on the championship team. So their market rate goes up. The life of football players is short. So they're really at this point just going for the dollar. Now, will they repeat? I think they'll still be a good team. I mean, I think Stafford's a really good quarterback. I think they still have a lot of good things going on. Aaron Donald. I mean, hey, so yeah, but I think that's what typically happens when teams win. Players go for greener pastures. They go for higher bucks, and the team they're on can't pay them, can't continue to pay everybody championship money. So they move on. So that's my take. I still think the Rams are going to be good. Will they repeat? Repeating is a very tough thing in the NFL. You don't see a whole lot of repeats. So I think they'll be a good team. I mean, I think they'll be competitive, and I think they'll be right in the mix.
Mr. Scott, you missed the baseball portion, so if you want to catch up on opening day and your Twins, you can do that, and give us any other final thoughts you have. Always good getting you on the show.
I'm gonna try to go. What is it, next Friday? I think it is. The Dodgers are here. I haven't seen the Dodgers. I was in California in 1978, and I went to Dodger Stadium, and it just so happened that they had an old-timers game that day. Oh, man, Cappy Campanella was there, Maury Wills, Frank Robinson. He had a towering home run, Willie Mays in the outfield. I mean, I still have the program from that thing. It was just unbelievable.
Wow.
I'm going to go see the Dodgers when they come here next week. They're playing a 3-game series next week. So, but that All-Star game was just like a dream. It was like a nirvana. I mean, everybody you could think of, Campy, he was in his wheelchair, Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax, Juan Marshall. I mean, they were all there at this old-timers game. It was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. So, yeah, I'll give you an update on the Twins. They look good, Again, the Twins, if they help their pitching, Sonny Gray looks, the number one starter. They lost the guy that went to the Tigers. I hated to see that, but I still think, and then the Tigers have made some moves. Actually, they're going to make a little bit of a roar. I have to agree with you, Demetrius, on the Tigers because They have really, and then they just made a
Wait a
trade
minute.
the other
Hold
day.
it.
I know you. I got to record it. No,
Yes.
I'm recording it. I'm recording it. I'm recording it. It's all good. I got it on tape. I got it on wax. No worries.
All right, I'm done. I'm through.
I got that on wax, baby.
Great having you, Mr. Scott. We always
Good to see you again, Mr.
appreciate it.
Scott.
My
Always
pleasure.
fun. Always fun.
My pleasure, guys. All you guys, I enjoy it. Thanks.
Bill, what's your thoughts on the Bobby Wagner acquisition, and will the Rams repeat? And your final thoughts?
Well, the Rams certainly can repeat, but it's so much harder than I remember when people were just sort of penciling in, right, Tampa Bay to repeating, right? And I was like, nope, I don't see it happening. And people were like, yeah. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's so much harder than people think. It's so much harder than people realize. So many things have to go right for you to win it once. And then even more has to go right for you to win it back, not only win it more than once, but win it back to back. It's just very difficult. It's rarely done, and we see why it's rarely done. It means you have to get fortunate in terms of injuries. Maybe your team has some, but they aren't serious, or they aren't clustered at one position where you aren't, devastated by them. It means that you have to play really great football and play the great football at the right time. It means that you've got to have at least some level of young players that improve to the point where they can take over for some of the older players that either are leaving the team or have left the team, or if they're still on the team but can't play as many snaps. I mean, Whitworth, you mentioned him, Whitworth. I mean, Whitworth was replaced for a while by Joseph Noteboom at left tackle. And Noteboom held up beautifully. So,
and
one,
he's getting paid.
and he deserves it. And Joseph Noteboom deserves to get paid. He's a close to franchise level left tackle. He's one of the top 10 to 12 left tackles in the NFL, and that means you get paid, because that's a position we pay people who play that position, because you have to face the Von Millers of the world. You have to face the going back at DeMarcus Ware, or talking about now DeMarcus Lawrence, or you have to Nick Chubb, or Myles Garrett. There's a list of 1 percentile freakish athletes, and they ask you to block those guys. So you deserve whatever you get. As was pointed out, how do we know what you're worth? Because someone's paying it to you. That's how we know. And then I guess I'll roll into my final thought, since we're going straight into final thoughts now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So on this day in 1971, Flood versus Kuhn, U.S. Federal case 256 came before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled 5-3 against Curt Flood and upholding what's called the Reserve Clause, which was established in the National League in 1879 and later sort of migrated over to the American League. But what it essentially did was it limited salaries because it kept players under team control even once their contracts had ended, as crazy as that sounds. And so the old team had right of first refusal and could reserve, in essence, the rights to that team under that, even after that contract was ended, preventing them from being taken by other teams in bidding wars. And of course, team owners always said that it was necessary to ensure, funny, we were talking about competitive balance a second ago, that was necessary to ensure competitive balance, right? The Reserve Clause did several things, but the main thing it did was it made sure that baseball didn't have anything resembling real free agency. And Curt Flood, who was a very fine center fielder for the Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals, was traded to the Philadelphia Phillies. He was unhappy with the trade. One, because the Phillies had a poor reputation for treatment of their players, but the Reserve Clause required him to play Philadelphia. He got an attorney named Art Goldberg, and through Marvin Miller and the Players Association, took the case to court, arguing the Reserve Clause was a collusion measure. And he wasn't wrong. I mean, that's exactly what it was. It reduced competition and was thus an antitrust violation. The Reserve Clause was, of course, upheld in district court. He went to the appellate court, was upheld in appellate court, and then finally the Supreme Court. And under the principle of stare decisis, the precedents were set forth by Federal Baseball versus Tolson. Obviously, the decision was roundly criticized by legal scholars, but baseball was different, special, even almost sacred at that time. And so they rigidly applied stare decisis, which simply means that if there's established case law, unless something can be demonstrated to have changed or altered or whatever, they just sort of say, oh, well, we're going to just agree to what they said.
Yep.
Right? And then Harry Blackman's majority opinion said it was basically an ode to baseball. Blackman was clearly a baseball fan. I would urge you, if you are into both legal stuff and baseball stuff, read Chief Justice Blackman's, or Justice Blackman's, because I guess Warren would have been the Chief Justice, but read Justice Blackman's majority decision. You know, he was the one that wrote the, what do you call it?
The opinion.
Thank you. Right. The assenting opinion. Yeah. And you can tell he loves baseball in the way it's written. And the reserve clause ended up eventually being settled outside the Supreme Court, quite frankly, when 3 years later the arbitration system was then hammered out in the next CBA, the collective bargaining agreement between MLB and the Players Association. And then Peter Seitz ruled in favor of Andy Messersmith and Dave McNally, and then said that their contracts could only be renewed without their permission for one season, right? One season, not for however many seasons, because before the team could just renew your contract. You didn't have to sign anything. There was no negotiation. I mean, it's unthinkable almost to a fan who's below a certain age that the team would just say, yeah, we're resigning you for the same money or less. That's the crazy thing. They can say we're automatically resigning you, but we're gonna take 2,500 back because you stole fewer bases, or just for whatever reason. They didn't even have to justify it. Usually they try to say, some reason they were, docking your pay, or not docking, but paying you less the next year. But they could just not say anything and just say, here it is. And you play for us, you play for no one. So that's an incredibly important thing. Curt Flood ended up sacrificing, in essence, his career. He's, I think, one of the most important figures in the history of baseball who isn't discussed nearly enough. And I hope that every young baseball player, I know they have like a rookie symposium, but I don't think they talk about Curt Flood at the rookie symposium. They ought to. They ought to say, see this picture up here? That's Curt Flood. Curt Flood's the reason that you can potentially in this game get 5 generations worth of wealth. Your great-great-great-great-grandchildren may never have to pick up their hands to do work ever because of this man right here. So my hat is off to you, Curt Flood, on this day, April the 7th, 2020, almost 50 years. No, 51. No, 52 and 22. 51 years after you lost your last attempt to strike down baseball's reserve clause.
Demetrius, always glad, even catching you while you're on the road. Your final thoughts on the Rams and your final thoughts for the evening.
My thoughts on the Rams are easy. They signed Bobby Wagner. They still have Jalen Ramsey. They still have Floyd and what's his name? Aaron something or other, the best player in the game, most likely, right? They still have a solid offense. I can't remember the name of the receiver they just signed, guys. Help me out. Anybody?
Oh,
Woods. Was it Woods?
No, they didn't sign Woods. Woods is with the Titans.
Yeah, they re-signed. They signed somebody else's guy, a free agent.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Hold on.
Good signing, whoever it was.
It was a good, solid signing.
He was from the Titans. From the Titans, right? Was he from the Titans or?
I can't remember. I'm just totally lost on it.
I'm lost on it too.
Yeah, you guys can look at it.
You're right.
While we're doing it,
I'll get it for you.
And they still have number 9 at quarterback. So yeah, in the NFC this year, in the NFC, yeah, they got a chance to go back and do it again. They're gonna have a healthy Cam Akers. They lost some good guys, but
Allen Robinson.
There it is.
Yeah,
and they added Allen Robinson.
Bears,
right. That's a good football team. I'm sorry. Now there's a bunch of teams in the AFC. So I don't know if the question was win the Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl, because there's two different questions. But then whoever comes out of the AFC will have run through a gauntlet of really good teams, and who knows? But I still like their chances, largely on the right arm of number 9 and the best player in football, irrespective of position, in Aaron Donald. And Jalen Ramsey is not a joke. Bobby Wagner is going to make him better. Allen Robinson is going to give you back whatever you lost in Beckham or whatever. So the Rams are still solid. My final thoughts are baseball, right? I'm gonna give it, and it's piggybacking off Bills, not necessarily the same thing, but in the same vein. So a week from tomorrow is going to be the 15th, and they're going to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Jackie Robinson.
Yep.
Every single year when this happens, I remember that 11 weeks later in Cleveland, Ohio, a young man who wasn't quite as good as Jackie, but a really good player, made his debut in the American League, and we just don't talk about him. I want a Larry Doby day.
Yeah.
I want Larry Doby day. I think he is, I can't say equally, right? Because the first is always the first. But he went through the same hell Jackie went through. He struggled initially. Then he came back in his second year and was the catalyst to that 48 World Series team in Cleveland. Anybody who was around or read about it will tell you he was a big part of that 48 Cleveland, the last championship I think the last championship they may have won. Larry Doby is very, very important. Like people, like Bill was saying, people don't know enough about Curt Flood. They don't understand the impact of Curt Flood. And Bill put it great. People's grandchildren's get to eat because of Curt Flood. And I would say to you that they always say if Jackie doesn't succeed, the whole thing could have went to hell. I would say Larry Doby had the same pressure in the American League because in 1947 they were two different leagues. It was two different leagues, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Jackie. Jackie deserves all those flowers and then some. Larry Doby deserves some flowers too, and I want a Larry Doby day. I'm sorry, and if people can disagree with me, I just don't think he gets enough credit. He doesn't get enough acknowledgement. And literally a lot of it was they had to be certain kinds of guys. Neither of them may have been the best player in the Negro Leagues. Josh Gibson probably was. Josh Gibson was phenomenal, but he didn't have the temperament. Josh Gibson would have killed somebody. We all know that. I mean, and I don't mean to say that lightly because retrospectively, Josh Gibson probably suffered from a mental illness that was undiagnosed for quite some time.
Right.
But from a talent standpoint, and I mean, you had guys, Satchel and Turkey Stearns, Cool Papa Bell, guys who should get recognized, right? But these were the two guys. And I don't think it was just Jackie, because Larry Doby was going through the same thing every day in the American League for most of that same summer. And we just don't talk about him enough. I need a Larry Doby day.
Yeah. The clown, the city of Cleveland used to have they used to have a Larry Doby day. But I'm not sure, if they still do or not. But like you say, a lot of those traditions and, those things have been lost now due to social media and instant gratification, I'd like to call it. But, Mike, hey, as always, man, good to have you in. Make sure you're out here with me so we could stay up another 2 hours.
Yeah, we can do this like
y'all have fun. Y'all have fun with that. Y'all have fun with that.
Give us your last thoughts there, Mike.
Yeah, so as far as the Rams, they'll be fine. It's just going to come down to wanting it, and that's what a lot of teams that are as talented. I mean, fluky things happen. Chiefs have been probably the best team in the AFC for the last couple of years, but they haven't returned. And then with the Rams, I think they'll be fine. They're just going to have to have those breaks go for them and then want it. I mean, a lot of teams that win the Super Bowl lose that taste, that hunger. So we'll see how the Rams respond. As far as my final thought, baseball too. Thank you, Bill, for mentioning Curt Flood, because that was what my master's thesis was Curt Flood in the freeze. So every time someone mentions Curt Flood, I get all excited about it. But as far as baseball itself, it's dropped down to one of the fewest. I think they're second right now, tied as the most interesting sports. I mean, it's down with basketball. And basketball, if we really look at it, yeah, it has a long history, but it really didn't even get involved until like Patrick Ewing in 1985, when, you know, before all of that, the playoffs weren't even on live television. I mean, they were recorded, and you had to watch it. So to say, you know, it's right there with basketball. It's not a sham on basketball. It's just basketball just hasn't had that life, you know, that life to it. It's like only 2% or 3% more watched than like soccer and other sports that they mark. This is all a study on CNN. If anybody out there is interested in looking it up. So I'm just completely shocked, but I'm not shocked on the same side too, because baseball is really trying to change the sport that I absolutely love. It's like changing soccer to us Americans, those who really love the traditional of the game. Yeah, you know, people are bored with it, and those are newbies that come in and watch it, get bored with it. But who isn't bored with soccer, right? And you could tell that the fans of soccer are going to say it's the artistic of the sport. And I think baseball is the same way. It's an art. So now you're going to go in, and Manfred is like, okay, so we're losing all this population. We're losing, you know, fans because it's boring. So we're going to take a masterpiece of art and just like throw purples and reds and whatever else colors onto it and just destroy this artistic masterpiece. I mean,
preach, brother.
Oh, thank you. You got this ghost runner. You now have the DH in the National League. You have like all this stuff, and it's just like, go away. You know, just take it and leave it as it is. I'm looking for the Giants tomorrow. They have opening day tomorrow, but really, let's not take what was and throw it in the river. Yes. And you know.
So Mike, I gotta let you know. I know we're wrapping up, but you don't join the beginning of the show. You basically just gave the speech I gave at the beginning.
Oh, really?
The beginning of the show. The guys will tell you, I get same speech. Stop messing with my game.
Right.
If you don't like it, go watch something else.
Exactly.
You literally took the words out of my mouth, and I love it.
Yeah, we will be talking baseball at the beginning of the show for the duration, Mike. So if you want to come in and talk a little baseball with us, baseball will actually take the place of March Madness. So
yeah,
we
did
have
20 minutes. 20 minutes to start the show on baseball. It was fabulous. I'm excited.
All right, guys. I'll see you next week.
All right, guys.
Have a good one, man.
Take care, gentlemen.
Appreciate everybody. Talk to everybody next week.
Good night,
Appreciate
everybody.
the audience. See you next week, everybody.
See you.